Chapter 1070. According to Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zhang once again stood in the celestial chess. When Ji Wuxiang gave the order, all the chess players completed their corresponding moves. Then, rays of light rushed out from under their feet and intertwined in the air above everyone's heads. At the same time, an invisible force of stars descended from the sky under the bright sun and landed in the capital city, covering the entire city. Ordinary people didn't notice anything strange at all, but the experts who had already walked out of their houses and sensed the abnormality felt it more and more clearly. They used all their skills, as if they wanted to sense the abnormal situation that descended from the sky. The force of stars descended on the mortal world. Although this force was very strange, many people could still sense its existence, but they couldn't communicate with it. It was like a smell. You could smell its existence, but it was extremely difficult to find it. Tian Chanzi soared into the air and ascended into the clouds. He looked down at the capital city below, then looked up at the sky and clicked his tongue in wonder. Strange, what kind of force is this? How can it be so tyrannical? This force came from the 9 heavens, which made Tian Chanzi's heart tremble. Especially in the unseen world, there seemed to be a big change in the capital city, and he also felt it. What caused all of this? He furrowed his brows, unable to figure it out. His gaze swept across the capital city, and he found that many experts had already climbed up to look, trying to figure out what was going on. This included the experts of several great clans and the inner palace. However, in the end, they found that all their efforts were in vain, because they couldn't guess what was going on. Everyone looked at each other. They were suspicious, but they couldn't do anything. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm, staring straight at the sky, as if they had seen a ghost. What's going on? Someone asked, trembling. No one could answer, because this was the first time they had seen such a scene. What was going on? It turned out that 2 suns had appeared in the sky at the same time. They were bright red, like a scene from myths and legends. Because of this, not only the experts, but even the ordinary people looked up at the sky and stared at this strange scene, all of them crying out in alarm. Tian Chanzi looked up in disbelief. He had never seen such a scene before. In ancient times, there was Ho-E shooting down the sun. Could it be that this was also the case? His brain was a little blank, and he couldn't figure it out. A few minutes ago, Xiaobai and little Yu Yu also walked out of the house and looked up at the sky. Little Yu Yu seemed to have sensed something, and slowly closed her eyes and opened her mouth. A portion of the moonlight essence from the vast and mighty star force that descended from the sky rushed into its little mouth. A look of enjoyment appeared on its face, and even the slits of its small eyes revealed a trace of light. Ever since it was born, it had never absorbed the essence of the moonlight. Because it was in the sea, even the moonlight had a hard time reaching the deep sea. Yu's abilities were inherited innate racial talents inheritance. Its S's hats was to its Cultivation 2's cultivation. This time, it sensed the power of the stars descending from the sky. Its racial talent was activated, and it automatically absorbed the essence of the moonlight. In an instant, a bright red moonlight appeared in the sky, just like the sun. This made those who didn't know what was going on subconsciously think that there were 2 suns in the sky, but it was actually little Yu absorbing the moon's essence. Xiaobai looked at little Yu thoughtfully, smacking his red lips and muttering to himself, "Looks like little Yu's power is going to increase by leaps and bounds." Xiaobai was very smart, and he easily figured out the cause and effect, so he wasn't surprised. Instead, he stared at little Yu with a curious look. Little Yu's cultivation and power were increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the power of the scarlet lunar beast, and this was also the extraordinary part of the moon's essence. In fact, the power of the stars was a level higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The cultivation speed of absorbing the power of the stars was definitely higher than that of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, ordinary people couldn't do this, so they didn't know much about it. Tang Zhang channeled even more of the power of the stars into the heavenly chess, and the ground was already covered in a layer of sparkling light. Due to the cover of the roof, the people in the Go Club were not clear about the strange phenomenon in the sky. Tang Zhang had no distractions and didn't have the energy to care about other things. As he guided the power of the stars into the celestial chess, he explored the mysteries of the celestial chess. Gradually, all the movements of the celestial chess were imprinted in his mind. Light dots gathered in his mind, weaving into a net of light. Finally, little by little, they formed the shape of a chess game. Tang Zheng's head moved as he cried out in surprise, Tianqi! Unknowingly, he had actually imprinted the celestial chess in his mind. However, he only had a rough idea of its scale now. He had only grasped its form, but had yet to comprehend its essence and true meaning. Stop! All of a sudden, Ji Wuxiang shouted, and all the chess players stopped. The power of the stars dissipated. Tang Zheng's eyes shone as he stared straight at Ji Wuxiang and asked, Director Ji, why did you stop? It's getting late. Everyone is tired. We'll continue another day, Ji Wuxiang said indifferently. We should continue in one go. Tang Zheng objected. He had just finished weaving the rough structure of the celestial chess and was preparing to strike while the iron was hot. He wanted to comprehend the essence and true meaning of the celestial chess in one go. However, he was stopped by Ji Wuxiang, which made him a little unhappy. Without the cooperation of the other chess players and Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng wouldn't have been able to activate the celestial chess, much less comprehend the essence of it. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly and said, We've already gained a lot today. We need to comprehend more of what we've gained today. Therefore, we'll invite young Master Tang another day to strengthen and perfect the celestial chess together. Ji Wuxiang's tone couldn't be refuted, causing Tang Zheng to frown. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Then I'll take my leave first. Tang Zheng turned around and left. Ji Wuxiang's smile gradually disappeared. His expression was unfathomable as he turned to the chess players and said, We've gained a lot this time. You'll have to properly comprehend it when you go back. Yes. In the future, the power of the celestial chess will be different. It will definitely shock the world. The era of the celestial chess is about to begin. Ji Wuxiang heavily waved his fist. His body emitted a completely different and incomparably domineering aura. If Tang Zheng saw this scene, he would definitely be very shocked. This was because he had always thought that Ji Wuxiang was weak and was just an ordinary person. However, this wasn't the truth. When Tang Zheng walked out of the chess club, the crimson moon in the sky had already disappeared without a trace. Therefore, he didn't know about the strange phenomenon in the sky. However, along the way, many people gathered in the streets and alleys. At the beginning and end of the streets and alleys, they raised their heads and stared at the sky without blinking as they discussed animatedly. From their words, Tang Zheng finally understood that there were two suns in the sky just now. He also couldn't hide his shock. However, seeing that everyone was speaking with certainty and solemnity, they definitely weren't lying. The shock in his heart could be imagined. He also couldn't help but raise his head to look. However, there was only the setting sun that was gradually setting in the west. There was no second sun. He couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Frowning, he returned to the door. Xiaobai rode little Yu Yu and dashed towards him. Xiaobai couldn't wait and shouted, Master, I have something important to tell you. Whoosh! After saying that, Xiaobai jumped up from the back of the red lunar beast and landed directly on Tang Zheng's shoulder. It hugged his head and acted like a spoiled child. Master, I found a secret. Do you want to hear it? Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. He patted its little head and asked, What's the matter? Why are you making such a fuss? Xiaobai pointed at little Yu Yu on the ground as if it was presenting a treasure and shouted, Little Yu Yu, don't move. You are the main character today. Do you know that? The main character must have an aura. Stand up straight. Little Yu Yu rolled its eyes and helplessly stretched its back like a big dog. However, it looked even more imposing. Master, do you see anything different about little Yu Yu? Xiaobai deliberately asked mysteriously. Xiaobai, stop fooling around. Tang Zheng patted its head and said. Xiaobai pouted and said unhappily, How am I fooling around? I am serious. Do you see anything different about little Yu Yu? Seeing Xiaobai being so serious, Tang Zheng's head twitched. Could it be that it wasn't deliberately playing with him? He quickly collected his thoughts and stared at little Yu Yu. Little Yu Yu seemed to have changed a little. Its eyes were more spirited and sharp. It had an imposing aura. Moreover, its body seemed to have grown a little longer. Although it wasn't obvious, it could still be seen if one looked carefully. What's going on? Tang Zheng asked in surprise. Xiaobai proudly said, Do you want to know? Of course. Hurry up and tell me. Don't keep me in suspense. Tang Zheng impatiently urged. Xiaobai laughed and said, "Do you still remember what the demon lord said about the red lunar beast?" Tang Zheng thought for a moment and nodded. "I remember. The red lunar beast has an extraordinary talent. It can absorb the essence of the moonlight and use it for itself. It can help with its cultivation." Xiaobai repeated. Tang Zheng felt that it was inconceivable and asked, "Of course I know this. But it's broad daylight right now. Is there a moon? Moreover, I haven't seen it absorb the essence of the moonlight before." "Who said there isn't a moon? A moon can appear in broad daylight. Master, did you see that red moon in the sky?" Xiaobai shook its head and said, "Red moon?" Tang Zheng was shocked. Could it be the second sun that people were talking about? Little White curled her lips and said disdainfully, "What second sun? That's because the moon has turned red and the sun and moon are shining together. This is all thanks to Little Yu Yu. Little Yu Yu, don't you agree?" Little Yu Yu lowered its head and called out listlessly. It could be considered to have agreed with Xiaobai's question, but it clearly admitted to it. Chapter 1071. Yan Qingyi nodded and said, "Yes, I saw a new image." "What image?" "Meteors from outer space, covering the sky and falling from the sky. It was as if thousands of stars were falling, as if the end of the world was coming." Yan Qingyi said with a serious expression. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank and said, "You haven't seen this scene before?" Yan Qingyi shook her head. "No, this is a new image." "Is there anything else?" "Yes, this is the sky, but the scene on the ground is different. The meteors did not destroy the earth, but a strange energy appeared in the sky, protecting everything on the ground and not being destroyed by the meteors." Yan Qingyi replied. Tang Zheng frowned and said, "Strange energy? Could it be the celestial chess?" Ji Wuxiang said that the celestial chess main function was protection. When the meteors fell, the celestial chess would definitely play a role and protect this world. Did that energy protect the entire world? Tang Zheng asked. Yan Qingyi thought for a while and shook her head, saying, "I don't know because the image suddenly stopped and I didn't see what came after." Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. The prophecy technique actually failed at the most crucial moment. "Do you think the world will really be destroyed?" Yan Qingyi asked carefully. Tang Zheng stared at her and asked, "What do you think?" "With you here, it definitely won't. Before, I suspected that you weren't the savior, but now it seems that my suspicion was wrong. In the end, you will definitely be the savior," Yan Qingyi said with certainty. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. "You seem to have a lot of confidence in me. Do you know what that energy is?" Tang Zheng was silent for a while and shook his head saying, "I don't know." Although he had guessed that it might be because of the celestial chess, after weighing the pros and cons, he chose to remain silent for now. Yan Qingyi's eyes revealed disappointment and she angrily nodded. "I suddenly prophesied the future again. I think it has something to do with the blood moon. Do you know what the blood moon is?" At this time, Xiaobai and Little Yu Yu also came downstairs and swaggered over. Tang Zheng looked at them and shook his head again. "Sorry, there's no further news for now." Yan Qingyi left disappointed and Tang Zheng fell into deep thought. Tian Chanzi walked over and said, "How much do you think her prophecy is reliable?" Tang Zheng looked at Yan Qingyi's back and said, "I also don't know, but since her prophecy technique, I don't think it's a coincidence." "Oh, then you think it's related to the heavenly chess?" Heaven Monk asked curiously. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. It could be considered a tacit agreement. Prophecy techniques seem to have many triggering mechanisms. Once something happened, Yan Qingyi would see a new prophecy. This time, it was obviously the celestial chess's change that triggered this mechanism. As for the blood moon, it was just a side condition. Tian Chanzi guessed Tang Zheng's thoughts and nodded in agreement. "Your judgment is reasonable and I agree. Since the celestial chess can cause this kind of change, and even cause meteorites to fall from the sky, it means that the celestial chess may not be harmful to us in the future, but will instead protect this world. Therefore, during this time, you must wholeheartedly perfect the celestial chess." Tang Zheng suddenly raised his head and stared at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, asking, "Are you really not afraid that the celestial chess will cause a terrifying chain reaction?" "Actually, I still believe in Yan Qingyi's prophecy a little. Maybe there really will be a day when meteorites fall from the sky. At that time, maybe the celestial chess will protect this world. Fortune and disaster are interdependent. Maybe this is the truth." But back then, didn't she also predict that the demon race would descend from Mount Buzhou? This is not contradictory. There must be some unknown connection between them. Since all of this has happened, then it must be an arrangement in the unseen world. You only need to follow the prescribed order. Moreover, I see that your cultivation seems to have increased again today. This is also your opportunity, bestowed to you by the celestial chess. All the more reason you should strike while the iron is hot and use the advantages of the celestial chess as much as possible, Tian Chanzi advised earnestly. Tang Zhang muttered to himself and did not say anything. In his heart, he gradually began to believe Tian Chanzi's words. Okay, then I'll listen to you. I'll continue to go to the Celestial Chess Club tomorrow. After a long time, he nodded resolutely. Tian Chanzi looked at him approvingly and patted his shoulder, feeling very gratified. In the night, undercurrents were surging in the capital. In the inner palace, the bureau chief looked at the intelligence report in front of him and turned pale with fright. The whereabouts of the High Lord was still a mystery, but there was news of another matter. They had finally found the source of the blood moon. Speaking of which, all of this was a coincidence. If the blood moon had not appeared in the sky, this matter would not have spread. The bureau chief looked at the black and white words in front of him and praised. What an unexpected surprise. The origin of the blood moon has been revealed just like that. He moved his gaze and read on word by word. Finally, his gaze fixed on a name. His temples twitched a few times, and a complicated expression appeared in his eyes. He clenched his teeth tightly, and after a long time, he squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Tang Zheng. It was actually him again. He was really haunting him. This name had been lingering in his ears for a very long time. Almost every important matter had a part to play in it. Even the matter of the blood moon this time could not be separated from him. Red lunar beast, so the blood moon was caused by one of his demon beasts, the bureau chief said. This news was spread by the few employees under Du Qifeng. Originally, almost all of them were tight-lipped and did not spread what happened in the sea to the public. However, when the blood moon appeared yesterday, they immediately thought of the demon lord's description of the red lunar beast. In addition, some people with ulterior motives preached about the end of the world. Hence, out of fear, they inadvertently revealed the matter of the red lunar beast and the blood moon. Of course, many people did not believe these words and thought that it was nonsense. However, since it was said, it would naturally spread. Although it was only left in a small circle, it could not escape the investigation of the officials. Although there was no way to prove this matter, the bureau chief only took one look at this set of words and almost believed it. An indescribable look flashed in his eyes, and he raised his arm high. Bang! His fist landed on the teacup, and the teacup shattered. His fist was cut open, and blood flowed out. Seeing this, number 1 was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Quick, call the doctor!" The people outside the door hurriedly went to call the doctor. However, the bureau chief did not seem to feel any pain. He gritted his teeth and said, "Go to Tang Zheng's house and find out what's so special about the red lunar beast. Be careful not to alert the enemy." Calm down, bureau chief. Number 1 hurriedly persuaded. This news might not be true. It might just be a rumor. Actually, after the battle at the Imperial City, Number 1 did not want to see Tang Zheng again. This was because Tang Zheng had left a deep impression on him. In his heart, Tang Zheng was the synonym of invincibility. This time he was going to investigate. It was definitely not a pleasant task, but a difficult one. However, since it was an order from his superior, he had no choice but to obey. Go quickly, the bureau chief urged. Yes. Number 1 accepted the order helplessly. However, he was glad that the bureau chief did not ask him to do anything. Therefore, he would first investigate. There was no need to confront him directly. This might reduce the risk by a lot. Number 1 hurriedly went to Tang Zheng's house and looked at the few buildings in the night. He had already received information that this place had almost become Tang Zheng's independent kingdom. Everyone here belonged to him. However, almost everyone chose to remain silent. No one dared to jump out and criticize him. In the capital, having such a strong force was like having a fishbone stuck in his throat. No wonder the bureau chief was getting more and more disgusted with Tang Zheng. Number 1 silently thought about this. He calmed himself down and carefully tried to be as light as possible. With a whoosh, he dashed towards the villa area. Bang! Suddenly, Number 1 felt as if he had hit a wall and was violently bounced back. He stood still in shock and looked up. There was nothing in front of him. There was only air. How did he get bounced back? What the hell? He cursed in confusion and took a deep breath. This must be an illusion. I can't be too nervous. I'm not here to kill Tang Zheng. I'm just here to gather information. There's nothing to be afraid of. He kept comforting himself secretly. Only then did he calm down. Once again, he gathered all his strength. With a tap of his toes, he dashed towards the villa like a fleeing rabbit. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. This time, the movement was even louder. He was bounced back and fiercely slammed into a large tree. The leaves rustled like the sound of a bell. It was especially ear-piercing in the silent night. Oh no! Number 1 thought to himself. He turned around and left. Such a big movement would definitely attract the attention of the other party. However, before he could take a step, in the darkness, more than 10 figures rushed out of the villa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like arrows leaving the bowstring, they quickly surrounded Number 1. Number 1 had nowhere to run. Number 1 looked depressed. His reaction speed was already extremely fast, but the other party's reaction speed was even faster than his. This made him feel deeply frustrated. In the past, as an expert in the palace, he was definitely a top expert. However, the world had changed. He was no longer an expert. He could only be considered a small shrimp. This contrast almost made him collapse. It was not easy for him to adjust his mentality. Facing so many people, he really wanted to fight back and run away. However, he understood that since he was surrounded, it was almost impossible for him to escape. This was because his every move had definitely fallen into Tang Zheng's eyes. If he were to escape, it would instead be a bad thing, and he would seem to be lacking in confidence. Therefore, he coughed and stood still. He pretended to be calm as he looked at the crowd. Many people of the witch tribe looked at this uninvited guest and naturally did not have a good attitude. They asked coldly, "Who are you? How dare you trespass here?" "I'm just a passerby." Number 1 lied without blushing. He only wanted these people to treat him as a passerby and let him go. Chapter 1072. Number 1's face was flushed red, and he was speechless. His thoughts had been seen through by the other party, and it was impossible for the other party to ignore him. Facing the young faces, he did not have the intention to fight back. Because he might be able to defeat these young people, but that did not mean that he could defeat Tang Zheng. If he fought back, it would only cause the situation to go out of control and become even worse. "Hurry up and tell me the truth," the witch clan member shouted. Number 1's mind raced as he helplessly said, "I'm here to look for Tang Zheng." "You're looking for the Lord Envoy? What are your intentions?" Number 1 had long known that these people were from the witch clan, and was not surprised by the way the Lord Envoy addressed them. He said, "I need to tell him face to face." "All right, just you wait." The witch clan member did not make things difficult for him and sent someone back to report. Number 1 suspiciously watched as they entered and exited on their own. There was no obstruction at all, but he was bounced back by an invisible force just now. Immediately, he understood that there was definitely something strange in this area, but with his cultivation and vision, he was still unable to determine what was going on. Tang Zheng's power is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting more and more unpredictable. It's not a wise move to make Tang Zheng his enemy. He pondered in his heart, but he was unable to control the chief's thoughts, so he could only sigh to himself. Not long after, the messenger returned and said coldly, "The Lord Envoy is waiting for you. Follow me." Chapter 1073. Xiaobai did not speak the human language immediately as it was afraid of scaring them. Tang Zheng had warned it repeatedly not to speak in front of strangers. "Woo-woo." Little Yu Yu growled and looked at the other party lazily. It did not take them seriously at all. Xiaobai was even more unscrupulous. It patted little Yu Yu's head and swaggered toward the other party. The people who came looked at each other and one of them laughed softly. It was really interesting. Number 1 walked out from the crowd with a cold expression. He knew better than the others how powerful Xiaobai was. As for the red lunar beast, although he had not seen its strength, he knew that it was not an ordinary animal. This time, he had personally taken action with the intention of killing it with one strike. He could not miss this great opportunity. Otherwise, he would alert the enemy and there would not be such a good opportunity to catch them in the future. Xiaobai rolled his eyes and glanced at number 1. The corner of his mouth twitched, looking very disdainful. Catch the red lunar beast. Number 1 gave the order and everyone rushed forward like a swarm of bees. This group of people were all experts in the palace. Although they could not be compared to number 1, they were all experts close to the master level. However, this was only for ordinary people. In Xiaobai's eyes, these people were no different from babies. Chapter 1074. The red hair on Xiaobai's forehead immediately turned into a ball of flame. It opened its little mouth and spat out a ball of flame towards the Honorable Lord. The Honorable Lord pushed his palms forward. The wind from his palms was like the waves of the sea, sending the flames flying in all directions. At the same time, his feet kept moving, stopping at a few key points. In an instant, he activated the celestial chess, causing the aura in all directions to change greatly. Boom! Above the 9 heavens, the majestic power of the stars descended, enveloping this part of the world. The flames immediately vanished into thin air, completely suppressed by this formless power of the stars. Xiaobai had seen the Honorable Lord in action before, but had never seen him use this move before. It couldn't help but feel strange and hurriedly asked, "What's going on?" The Honorable Lord didn't answer, but silently thought, "The celestial chess has been completed. This capital city is my territory. I can activate the celestial chess at any time and borrow the power of the stars to suppress you all." Seeing that the Honorable Lord was silent, Xiaobai coldly snorted and said, "It's fine if you don't say it. You think you can suppress us like this?" Whoosh! Little you seem to have read his mind. She jumped out from the side, her black tail like a sharp spear piercing towards the Honorable Lord's head. At the same time, Xiaobai spat out flames once again. The sky full of flames immediately surrounded the Honorable Lord from all directions. A cold light flashed in the Honorable Lord's eyes. With a point of his finger, the power of the stars from all directions engulfed the flames and resisted each other, causing resplendent sparks to explode. Xiaobai was anxious. The Honorable Lord's strength was higher than he expected. He hurriedly turned to little Yu and said, "Little Yu, quickly run. Don't let him catch you." Little Yu was stunned. She stared blankly at Xiaobai, as if she was very surprised that he would sacrifice himself to save her. However, she immediately understood Xiaobai's painstaking efforts and turned to run. The Honorable Lord roared, "Come back." Of course, he couldn't let a cooked duck fly. The power of the stars converged into one point and like an arrow, it silently chased after little Yu. Puff! A trickle of blood flowed out from little Moon's back, but it didn't stop. Instead, it increased its speed and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. Seeing that his attack had failed, the Great Lord was furious and annoyed. If he could control the power of the stars better, he would not have let the scarlet lunar beast escape. Actually, ever since he had mastered the heavenly chess, he had also been exploring and researching the power of the stars. Unknowingly, he had also found a way to control the power of the stars. However, he was very clear that there was still a gap between himself and Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's control over the power of the stars was like an extension of his arm, and he had only just started. Moreover, he had to rely on the celestial chess to be able to do so. However, he believed that as the heavenly chess was perfected, his control over the power of the stars would increase day by day. That was why he allowed Tang Zheng to absorb the power of the stars as he pleased. Of course, he could see that Tang Zheng's cultivation was increasing, but what could he do? He believed that he could be like Tang Zheng in the future. Not only could he control the power of the stars, but he could also absorb the power of the stars. All these years, he had been exploring. His predecessors had viewed cultivators as scourges, but he gradually had a different view. Cultivators had always been strong, and they definitely had their merits. Why couldn't cultivators learn from their strengths to make up for their weaknesses? Why couldn't cultivators learn from their strengths and get rid of their weaknesses? Cultivators relied on cultivation techniques to cultivate their inner strength, and from there, they could produce inner strength, increasing their cultivation and power. However, cultivators were better at absorbing the energy from the outside world to increase their power. One was internal and one was external. After all, internal cultivation was limited, but external energy was endless. Therefore, Cultivators' power was usually higher than cultivators. The Great Lord saw this disadvantage, so after thinking hard and referring to the wisdom of the ancient people, he created the heavenly chess, which could draw the power of the stars from the 9 heavens. Cultivators couldn't absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but could they absorb the power of the stars? After a period of exploration, the High Lord finally gave a definite answer. A martial artist could absorb the power of the stars. It was just that he hadn't explored this path yet, but he believed that with his strength and wisdom, he would definitely be able to explore this path. When that time came, cultivators could freely absorb the power of the stars in the area covered by the heavenly chess. At that time, they would truly usher in the peak period of cultivators, and they would possess strength that was not inferior to cultivators. This was a very big game of chess. Until now, only the Great Lord knew about this in the world. He wouldn't tell anyone else until the last moment. Of course, if Tang Zheng and the others knew about the Great Lord's grand plan, they would definitely be amazed. This was because this was an unprecedented pioneering work, and it was the ambition of a swan. If he succeeded, he would definitely leave a thick and colorful stroke in the long river of history. Looking at the vexed Lord, Little White revealed a smug expression. Seeing this, the Great Lord snorted coldly and said, "Xiaobai, you're digging your own grave, so don't blame me for this." The reason why the Great Lord had spent so much effort to capture the Red Lunar Beast was because the Red Lunar Beast could absorb the essence of moonlight. This might be useful for the Great Lord's research on the power of the stars. That was why he had spent so much effort. As for Xiaobai, of course, he knew that Xiaobai was powerful and extraordinary. However, as far as he knew, even Tang Zheng didn't know about Xiaobai's origin, so he didn't take it to heart. All in all, if he could kill it, it would be a blow to Tang Zheng. He wouldn't miss such an opportunity. Boom! The power of the stars dispersed the flames and hit Xiaobai's head heavily. It cried out in pain and retreated awkwardly. The Great Lord's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His fingers moved and formed a hand seal, and a cadence of syllables burst out from his mouth. "Om. Ma. Ni." Just 3 syllables of the 6-syllable proverb were uttered, and the aura of heaven and earth changed dramatically. Xiaobai's body shook, and it was unable to move. Its body was filled with killing intent and battle intent, and it happened to be suppressed by the 6-syllable proverb, so it couldn't move. A smile appeared in the Honorable Lord's eyes as he punched Xiaobai's body. Xiaobai trembled violently, and a trace of red blood flowed from the corner of its mouth. The Great Lord's eyes flashed with surprise. "After taking such a heavy punch from me, you're still alive. You're really tenacious." Just as he was about to attack again, his ears twitched, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He said, "Someone's coming. I'll spare your life for now." After saying that, the Great Lord grabbed Xiaobai and disappeared into the night in a flash. After Tang Zheng returned home, he hadn't even warmed his seat when he vaguely felt the power of the stars descending from the sky. It seemed a little strange. Could it be that Ji Wuxiang used the power of the stars when I wasn't around? What is he trying to do? In fact, the Great Lord was using the celestial chess to use the power of the stars to attack Xiaobai and little Yu Yu. His eyes flickered as he thought about the purpose of Ji Wuxiang's strange actions. However, no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't figure it out. He had an idea. Should I go to the Go Club to find out what's going on? He thought for a moment and finally decided to go to the Go Club. As for whether he would find anything, he would only know when he went. When he walked out of the house, he didn't walk far before he saw a black shadow shooting toward him from afar. His pupils shrank as he recognized little Yu Yu at a glance. However, she was in a sorry state with blood dripping from her body. He was shocked. When he returned home, he didn't see Xiaobai and little Yu Yu, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, these 2 little fellows usually liked to wander around outside and ordinary people couldn't hurt them. Therefore, he didn't worry about them before. "Little Yu Yu, what's going on?" He hurriedly stopped little Yu Yu. Little Yu Yu stopped in her tracks in a panic and pointed her claws in a direction in the darkness. She growled anxiously. Although Tang Zheng didn't know what she meant, he could guess that it wasn't anything good. He hurriedly asked, "Is there danger?" Little Yu Yu nodded heavily. "Where's Xiaobai?" Little Yu Yu pointed in front again. Tang Zheng's head thumped. He knew that these 2 little fellows had probably encountered some powerful enemy. There were very few people in the capital who could hurt them. Tang Zheng's heart sank. Quick, take me there. He couldn't guess who it was and decided to go to the scene first. Little Yu Yu turned around and rushed into the darkness. Tang Zheng hurriedly chased after her. In the darkness of the night, there was no sound. The air was filled with an oppressive and austere aura, causing Tang Zheng's heart to jump. Suddenly, he saw a few more people lying on the ground in the distance. He didn't know if they were dead or alive. Could it be that these people attacked them? The man and beast rushed to their destination. Little Yu Yu scurried around, looking for traces of Xiao Bai. However, she couldn't find him at all. She couldn't help but anxiously run around in circles, constantly growling. Where's Xiao Bai? Tang Zheng also realized this. He looked around but couldn't find Xiao Bai. Could it have left after defeating these people? Then who were these people? He took a closer look and saw a familiar face on the ground. Number 1. He couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Number 1's body was covered in blood and there was no trace of life. Could it be that Number 1 had brought people to deal with Xiao Bai and Little Yu Yu but was killed by them instead? With Xiao Bai's strength, he shouldn't be at a disadvantage against Number 1. Why was Xiao Bai nowhere to be seen? Also, Number 1 was the bureau chief subordinate. Could it be that the bureau chief wanted to deal with him? Thinking of this, his heart skipped a beat. A strong murderous intent and vigilance flashed in his eyes. If that was really the case, then the situation would become terrible. To be honest, he didn't want to be enemies with the government. However, if the other party really went too far, he wouldn't sit still and wait for death. Suddenly, a few glaring lights lit up in the darkness ahead. Many people rushed out and fiercely shouted, "Stop, don't move! Ka-ka-ka!" Chapter 1075. The glaring light shone on Tang Zheng's face. He narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at the group of uninvited guests who suddenly rushed out. Black muzzles were pointed at him. He did not panic at all because he had already determined who these people were. They were the chief's men. Number 1 is dead. Suddenly, one person exclaimed. The others acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They all checked the people on the ground. Other than Number 1, the others were still breathing, but they were all heavily injured. Were you the one who killed Number 1? Someone yelled at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not answer. Instead, he looked at the other person coldly. His eyes were like a glacier that would not melt for thousands of years, making people feel a chill from the soul. Xiao Bai was captured by you? Xiao Bai was missing. Tang Zheng judged that he must have fallen into the hands of the enemy. However, he was very puzzled. Even Number 1 was dead. Who could have captured Xiao Bai? Could it be that the chief had found some powerful helpers? I'm the one asking you a question, not you asking me. Do you understand? The other person shouted angrily. Tang Zheng looked at him indifferently. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he said, "You better have a better attitude. Otherwise, none of you can think of leaving here." The other person was furious and was about to flip out again when he heard someone exclaim, "He's Tang Zheng." A person's name was like a tree's shadow. When the two words, Tang Zheng, came out, the other person was so scared that he staggered back and looked at him in shock. Were you the ones who captured Xiao Bai? Tang Zheng asked with an ashen face. I don't know. The other person hesitated for a moment and said with fear, "If you don't say, I'll ask your chief myself." Tang Zheng said decisively. There was no use in talking about these things with these small fries. Thus, he strode away. These people looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Should they stop him? They knew that they did not have that ability. Tang Zheng sent little Yu Yu home first. The little girl was very anxious, but she couldn't speak. She shook her head and gestured for a while, but still couldn't express what she meant. Tang Zheng patted its head and said, "Little Yu Yu, be good. Stay at home. I'll be back soon." The others gathered around. They also knew that Xiao Bai was missing, so they were naturally very worried. "I'll go with you." Wudong refused to budge. "I'll go too." The others all volunteered. Tang Zheng shook his head and rejected all of them. He said to Tian Chanzi, "I'll have to trouble you to take care of the family. I feel that this matter is not as simple as it seems. There must be a deeper meaning behind the chief's decision to launch an attack at this time. I'll go and find out what the other party is up to." Tian Chanzi didn't take it to heart and said, "What's there to be afraid of when he's an official? In ancient times, even emperors couldn't do anything in front of us cultivators, let alone an official." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. He didn't say anything and turned to leave the house alone. At the same time, the chief had already received the news of number one's death. He was furious, and the other subordinates kept quiet out of fear. After a while, the chief finally calmed down. His heart trembled as he asked, "You said that Tang Zheng asked you for Xiaobai?" "Yes, he said that we captured Xiaobai." The chief fell into deep thought. He suddenly had an idea. He purposely blackmailed us. My men were killed by him, and he still has the nerve to make up an excuse to bite back. Humph, how cunning. Is he trying to make me his enemy? He gritted his teeth in hatred. Number one was really useless. He couldn't even catch the two little guys, and even lost his life. Number one was his most reliable subordinate. There were many things that he needed number one to handle. Now that number one was dead, it was equivalent to him losing his left and right arms. Tang Zheng said that he would come and find me personally? The chief had a flash of inspiration as he asked. The subordinate nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. The chief's heart trembled, and he hurriedly shouted, "Quickly go and summon Yi Xuanji here." The subordinate obeyed and left. He paced back and forth in the room. A day felt like a year. During this period of time, he had the upper hand in the official field. He beat his old rival, Ji Wuxiang's backer, until he couldn't resist at all. Seeing that the other party was about to completely collapse, he couldn't make any mistakes at this time. In addition, during this period of time, he also heard some rumors. It seemed that some leaders' attitudes towards Tang Zheng had changed a lot. They felt that they shouldn't go against him, but should instead form an alliance with him and recruit talents. This was a very abnormal phenomenon. It meant that other than his old rival, there was actually an undercurrent surging. It was just that he didn't find this undercurrent. Of course, he didn't know that this was Li Xiaotian's pillow talk plan that worked. This plan targeted all the high-ranking officials. They didn't seem to have formed a faction, but because of the pillow talk night in and night out, their attitudes towards Tang Zheng quietly changed. In the past, when it came to their attitudes towards Tang Zheng, it was the chief who had the final say. Now, these people gradually had different thoughts. They felt that the chief's approach was too radical and wasn't conducive to unity. The chief only felt a little bit of it, but he didn't understand the deeper meaning. Just as he was in a daze, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. He was shocked and scolded, "You didn't make a sound. Are you trying to scare me to death?" The other party didn't answer. He felt a pair of burning eyes staring at him. He quickly looked up and saw a familiar handsome face. He was so scared that he staggered and took a step back. "Tang Zheng, you have guts. You actually dare to trespass in my place." The chief scolded guiltily. His eyes flashed as he looked left and right, as if he was waiting for Yi Xuanji to appear. Tang Zheng sat on the chair and looked at the other party coldly, saying, "You should know very well why I'm here." The chief said guiltily, "How would I know? It's against the law to trespass in the middle of the night. Do you know that?" Tang Zheng laughed disdainfully. "You and I are both smart people. Don't use these petty tricks to scare people. Save some energy and saliva. Hurry up and hand over Xiaobai. Tell me what's going on." Seeing Tang Zheng's overbearing attitude, the chief was furious. No one had ever dared to be so arrogant in front of him. He couldn't help but slam his palm on the table. The teacup jumped up and spilled a lot of tea. "Tang Zheng, you're really getting more and more arrogant." Seeing that the other party wasn't cooperating, the anger that Tang Zheng deliberately suppressed finally rose up. He suddenly grabbed the chief and the chief was sucked into his palm. Their eyes met. They were so close that they could feel each other's breathing. For the first time in his life, the chief felt such a strong murderous intent and the threat of death. His heartbeat sped up, as if it was going to burst out of his chest. His face was pale. He asked fiercely, What are you doing? Hand over Xiaobai." "I didn't catch Xiaobai at all." He had no choice but to answer directly. However, Tang Zheng didn't believe him. He rolled his eyes and said, "Do you think I'm so gullible? You specifically sent number one to attack my pet. What are you trying to do?" "It's all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? Humph. What a simple word. Do you think you can get rid of me so easily? Tang Zheng was unmoved. It's really a misunderstanding. I heard that the blood moon is related to your red lunar, so I wanted to send number 1 to invite the red lunar back to investigate. At this critical moment, the chief didn't hide anymore and told him the truth. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were filled with shock. He asked, "How did you know about this?" The chief's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the news was true. The blood moon incident was indeed related to Tang Zheng. It caused such a big panic and the government was repeatedly questioned. So it was all because of him. He was anxious and angry, but there was nothing he could do. He could only tell him the whole story. Tang Zheng sighed. Du Qifeng said that he would ask his employees to keep their mouths shut. It seemed that with so many people around, many secrets would be exposed to the public. There was no way to keep it a secret. Since they already knew about this, it naturally wouldn't escape the ears of others. In the end, little Yu Yu's extraordinariness would definitely be exposed to the public. Then, there would be a lot of people who would fight against it. As long as they ate the red lunar's inner core, they would be able to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. To many people, the red lunar was like Tang Zheng's meat. Everyone wanted to take a bite. The chief was so eager to catch little Yu Yu that he might have such thoughts. He was an ordinary person, not a martial artist or a cultivator. However, after seeing the abilities of cultivators, his mind naturally became active. If he had powerful abilities, he wouldn't need to rely on others for many things. His interests and status would be more stable. However, cultivation wasn't something that could be done overnight. He was already middle-aged. If he wanted to cultivate, he would have to take a shortcut. The red lunar's inner core was one such shortcut. Hence, when he heard the news, he didn't seem to have much of a reaction on the surface. However, in reality, his heart was already in turmoil. It was just that he didn't tell anyone. Tang Zheng stared straight at him. From his eyes, he had already seen through his heart. He said, "You want to get little Yu Yu? You must be dreaming. With me around, no one can touch little Yu Yu. I'll say it again. Hand over Xiao Bai. Otherwise, I won't be polite." The chief felt bitter and said, "I really didn't catch Xiao Bai. You've already killed my men. What else do you want?" The veins on his forehead bulged, making him look ferocious. Tang Zheng stared at him without blinking. He wanted to distinguish the truth in his words. However, for such a shrewd person, it was impossible to tell the truth from the other party's words and expressions. Should he use the soul-searching technique? Seeing that Tang Zheng was indecisive, the chief was afraid that he would really do something extreme. He quickly explained, "Number 1 is the most powerful person in my hands. He's already dead. How can I catch Xiao Bai? Think about it carefully." Chapter 1076. Yi Xuanji's mind went blank as he stood rooted to the ground. In the middle of the night, the bureau chief hurriedly summoned him. He rushed over without stopping and did not expect to see Tang Zheng. In addition, the atmosphere between Tang Zheng and the bureau chief seemed to be a bit unusual. The guards outside the room did not expect that there would be another person in the room. They did not hear the commotion and were shocked as they shouted loudly. Tang Zheng glanced at them indifferently and did not pay them any attention. Instead, his gaze fell on Yi Xuanji. Yi Xuanji's heart trembled as his mouth tasted bitter, as if he had eaten Chinese gold thread. He bitterly looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Tang Zheng, if you have anything to say then let go of the leader first." Tang Zheng was not moved. He looked around and asked, "Are you the helper he invited?" Yi Xuanji wanted to say no and turn around to leave. However, he could not say that because the bureau chief's intention for summoning him was obvious. It was to let him restrict Tang Zheng. However, how could he have that ability? "Yi Xuanji, I did not call you here to stare. Tang Zheng is going against his superiors. Hurry up and arrest him." The bureau chief seemed to have finally found a backing as he roared hysterically. Yi Xuanji was in a dilemma. In the end, he braced himself and stepped forward. He faced Tang Zheng and said, "Tang Zheng, hurry up and let go of the bureau chief. If he doesn't hand over Xiao Bai, how can I let go?" Tang Zheng said jokingly. Yi Xuanji did not understand the situation, but he knew how important Xiao Bai was to Tang Zheng. When he heard this, he subconsciously looked at the bureau chief. The bureau chief's face turned red as he raised his head and said hoarsely, "Don't listen to his nonsense." "What Xiaobai? I don't know anything about it. How can I arrest it?" "But you." Tang Zheng was just about to say the bureau chief's intentions towards little Yu Yu, but when he saw the others glaring at him covetously, he swallowed his words and coldly snorted, saying, "No matter how you quibble, you will not be able to convince others. If you do not hand over Little White, I will not let this matter rest." He was going all out this time. Although the other party's identity was illustrious, he decided to take the risk for the sake of Xiaobai's safety. The bureau chief was angry and anxious. He didn't expect Tang Zheng to be so stubborn and bold, but there was nothing he could do. Yi Xuanji didn't know whether to retreat or attack. He just stood there like an ant on a hot pan, not knowing what to do. The two sides were in a stalemate. Suddenly, Qi Yu's voice sounded above Tang Zheng's head. "The desolate aura has appeared again." Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched as he turned pale with fright. He secretly asked, "Qi Yu, what are you yelling about?" "Tang Zheng, don't bite the hand that feeds you. I'm telling you that the desolate aura has appeared again. Don't you want to catch that person?" Qi Yu said unhappily. Tang Zheng's head moved as he hurriedly asked, "You're saying that the person from the Ye family who was possessed has appeared again?" Qi Yu snorted and said, "If that wasn't the case, why would I be so anxious to remind you?" "Where is he?" Tang Zheng impatiently asked. "Just outside." Tang Zheng looked deeply at the bureau chief and then looked outside the door. He couldn't help but become excited. This person who was possessed was not weak. It was very strange for him to appear here at this time. Could it be that he had something to do with the bureau chief? In fact, the bureau chief sent this person and number one to capture little Yu Yu and Xiaobai. In the end, Xiaobai fell into this person's hands. Otherwise, it didn't make sense who had the power to capture Xiaobai. Thinking about this, he increasingly felt that this was the case. So, he made a prompt decision. He left the bureau chief behind and walked out the door. The other guards wanted to stop him, but they forcefully swallowed their words. Without a doubt, if they tried to stop him, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Yi Xuanji looked at Tang Zheng suspiciously. He didn't know what he was going to do. Seeing that his attention was focused outside the wall, he followed his gaze but didn't notice anything strange. What is he going to do? Everyone had this question in their hearts. Even the bureau chief's arrogant voice lowered as he looked at him strangely. Whoosh! With a leap, Tang Zheng jumped onto the top of the wall and disappeared. Everyone was relieved as if a heavy burden had been removed from their shoulders. They looked at each other, not knowing what Tang Zheng was trying to do. The bureau chief had a sudden idea and said to Yi Xuanji, "Quickly chase after him and see what he's doing." Yi Xuanji's face was bitter as he declined. Tang Zheng's cultivation is shocking. It won't be easy to catch up with him. The bureau chief frowned and said with an unkind expression, "You're not going?" Would Yi Xuanji dare to not go? He wouldn't dare. So, he sighed and chased after him with his head lowered. The bureau chief was still worried. He gave a few glances to his subordinates and a few of them chased after him. The bureau chief looked at the night sky and fell into deep thought. This incident happened too quickly. He personally experienced the threat of death, causing him to be both shocked and angry. Of course, he was still pondering over the key points of this incident. Tang Zheng was an arrogant and unruly person. Now he was looking down on him more and more. He actually dared to be so disrespectful to him for a demon beast. As for where Xiaobai was, he obviously didn't know. However, he didn't doubt Tang Zheng's words. Xiaobai must have gone missing. However, he couldn't rule out the possibility that Tang Zheng was using this as a pretext to make things difficult for him. No matter what, Xiaobai's disappearance was the key to resolving all of this. The bureau chief was very clear that Xiaobai wasn't an ordinary person. Even number one died in their hands, so it was even more impossible for him to disappear for no reason. There must be more to it? Could it be that there was another force involved in this incident? Purposely capturing Xiaobai so that Tang Zheng's anger would be directed at him. This was simply killing with a borrowed knife. What a vicious idea. A cold light flashed in the bureau chief's eyes. He didn't deny his guess. He had a deep understanding of the dangers of the world. Then who is it that wants to deal with me? In his mind, he filtered out possible candidates, but in the end, he couldn't be sure. Although he was called the bureau chief in the capital, there were many bureau chiefs. Moreover, they were real bureau chiefs. They were all people in power. He was only one of them. He had many enemies and opponents, both in the open and in the dark. Everyone had the motive. As for who had this power, he couldn't guess at the moment. Many people were old foxes. They hid their tails very well and wouldn't easily reveal it. Even he, who was experienced and astute, might not know all the details. He fell into deep thought and distress. Tang Zhang chased after the prehistoric aura, but was told by Qi Yu that the prehistoric aura was moving quickly, and its speed was much faster than the last time. It was obvious that the other party's cultivation had increased a lot during this period of time. This person has become stronger. We have to catch him as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be even harder to catch him in the future. The inner demons interrupted. Tang Zheng obviously understood this logic. He raised his speed to the limit, and in the dark night, he could only see a gust of wind. He was like a whirlwind, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to see him clearly with their naked eyes. He was a 7th stage Yuanian cultivator, which was a full 3 levels higher than the last time. However, the other party's speed was not weak at all. It had to be said that the other party's cultivation speed was not inferior to his. This is a ruthless character. He definitely wasn't a nobody back then. The inner demons evaluated. Tang Zheng's head moved, and asked, Qi Yu, didn't many of the creatures in the prehistoric heavenly tomb sacrifice themselves in the Battle of Zhuolu? Could it be that this person is also your subordinate? Qi Yu was silent for a moment, then said, The ones buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb are not only my clansmen, but also the clansmen of the Yellow Emperor. What if they are his subordinates? Tang Zheng thought so too. Without seeing the real person, it was impossible to be sure. We're close. Suddenly, Qi Yu cried out in surprise. Quick, take advantage of this momentum and close the distance. Tang Zheng thought for a while and continued to circulate his innate qi. His speed finally increased a little, the scenery on both sides became blurry, and only the sound of the wind could be heard, but there was only one thing that was very clear, and it was getting clearer and clearer, and that was the target. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly shrank. He stared at the figure in disbelief, and secretly exclaimed, Woman! It was actually the figure of a woman. He never thought that the person who was possessed by the Ye family was actually a woman. Qi Yu and the inner demons were also shocked, and exclaimed, It's actually a woman. This means that the person who took over the body must have been a woman when he was alive. A man would not occupy a woman's body, and a woman would not occupy a man's body. No one would have such a hobby. Which was why they dared to make such an assertion. Back then, you didn't seem to have such a powerful female subordinate. The inner demons asked. Qi Yu was silent for a moment, then said, Indeed, the Ninely tribe is a man of honor. Women would never go to the battlefield, and only the Yellow Emperor would do something like letting a woman go to the battlefield. Humph. Qi Yu seemed to disagree with the Yellow Emperor's way of doing things, and was rather critical. The inner demons laughed and said, Women are not weaker than men. What left the deepest impression on me was that there was a female general in the Yellow Emperor's camp. Many of your subordinates died at her hands, right? These words undoubtedly touched on Qi Yu's scar, and he flew into a rage. Don't mention this woman. Haha, your subordinates were no match for her, so you can't even mention her? You are the great Qi Yu, and you don't even have the courage to do this? The inner demons did not let go of any opportunity to attack Qi Yu, and ridiculed him. Tang Zheng heard the conversation between the two, and muttered in his heart. Women could hold up half the sky, and Qi Yu looked down on women. In today's terms, it was male chauvinism. The Yellow Emperor was obviously smarter, and used women, which would definitely make the current feminists very happy. The ancient times were a patriarchal society, and men held the absolute leadership in both family and social relations. Powerful women like the Nine Heavens Fairy were few and far between, and if she was not the Emperor of Heaven's daughter, she might not have become like this. Not to mention the ancient times. Chapter 1077. Qi Yu was mocked by the inner demons. After being angry for a while, he angrily roared, Inner demons, do you want to go against me? I want to go against you. What can you do about it? The inner demons said. Inner demons, I have tolerated you for a long time. This time I won't tolerate you anymore. Qi Yu said aggressively. Qi Yu, Your subordinates can't even deal with a woman. What qualifications do you have to shout at me? The inner demons disdainfully said. Both sides were on the verge of breaking out into a fight. Tang Zheng jumped in fright and hurriedly said, "What's wrong with you two? Please don't hurt each other." Tang Zheng, I have tolerated you for a long time. You rely on your 9 yang saint body and celestial body to imprison me. Wait until I get out. I'll peel off your skin and pull out your tendons. Qi Yu changed the topic and pointed the spearhead at Tang Zheng as he loudly shouted. The inner demon said, "Yes, young man. Do you think you are very strong? Wait until Qi Yu and I get out. I'll kill him first and then I'll kill you." Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. He thought that these two fellows had been feigning civility with him all this time. They actually had such vicious thoughts. His anger immediately rose to a height of 3 feet. He immediately stopped and said, "Since you say that, then I'll properly settle this debt with you." With a thought, Tang Zheng immediately circulated his energy and crazily absorbed Qi Yu's heart blood. Qi Yu miserably screamed and shouted in panic, "Tang Zheng, what are you doing?" Tang Zheng's face was somewhat sinister. Qi Yu, didn't you want to kill me? I'll kill you first. Let's see who dies first. Haha, Qi Yu, you're done for. The inner demons laughed maniacally. Inner demons, don't be so smug. If I die, you won't have an easy time either, Qi Yu shouted. He focused all of his energy and launched an attack on the inner demons. The two of them had always maintained a kind of balance and could still attack each other. However, both of them were rational people, and this time, anger attacked their hearts, causing them to suddenly lose their rationality and start fighting. The 3 sides were locked in a fierce battle. Tang Zheng kept on absorbing Qi Yu's heart blood, causing Qi Yu to almost go crazy. Being attacked from the front and back, he was living a life worse than death, suffering all kinds of torture. Qi Yu couldn't bear this kind of torture. The threat of death suddenly made his mind clear. He quivered and had an idea. He exclaimed, Stop quickly. Do you really want to kill me? We've fallen into the enemy's trap. Haven't you realized? Tang Zheng and the inner demons didn't have the intention to stop. It seemed that they would only stop when he was dead. Incubus, we've been hit by the incubus's magic. Qi Yu impatiently shouted. Incubus. This word was like a bolt of lightning, flashing across the two's hearts. They were stunned as if they had been hit in the head. Then, Tang Zheng found that the scene in front of him had changed greatly. He was not running, but standing in the same place, surrounded by darkness. He was shocked. It was the incubus again. He had unknowingly fallen into the trap again, and even the inner demons and Qi Yu were no exception. Last time, their minds were clear, and they were not affected by the incubus's magic at all. Qi Yu and the inner demons were even more shocked. One could imagine the shock in their hearts. The two were silent for a few seconds, and then they shouted at the same time, The incubus's power has increased again. If it was in the past, they definitely wouldn't be afraid of the incubus, and the incubus couldn't really hurt them. That was because their strength had reached the peak, and they were one of the most powerful people at that time. But now, they were only left with a wisp of soul, and their cultivation was greatly reduced. So once the incubus's power increased, they couldn't even resist the incubus's magic. If I catch the incubus, I'll definitely cut him into pieces and tear him into pieces. Qi Yu roared. The inner demons also roared, We definitely can't let him go. There was no doubt that although it was just a dream, they still exposed their true thoughts. They still regarded Tang Zheng as an enemy, and they didn't see eye to eye with each other. Tang Zheng quivered. He had been with these two for a long time, and they had helped him in many ways. His guard against them was getting weaker and weaker, and he almost really thought that they were harmless and were his companions. Although it was just a dream, there was no doubt that they were telling the truth, and exposed their true colors. But he didn't take the initiative to mention this matter, as if he had forgotten. Qi Yu and the inner demons also had a tacit understanding, and they didn't mention it. They said together, The incubus's power has increased, and even we have fallen into his trap. You must be more careful. Yes, young man, you must not be careless. The incubus's power is recovering so quickly. It is really beyond our expectations. The inner demons also kindly reminded. Tang Zheng's eyes trembled, and he looked into the darkness in front of him. Faintly, he saw the figure of a woman, and was shocked. So what he saw in the dream wasn't all just a figment of his imagination. How could you break through my traceless dream again? The other side cried out in surprise. Ha! Tang Zheng's head moved, and he seemed to be familiar with this voice, as if he had heard it before. Just at this time, Tang Zheng's phone rang. Tang Zheng, according to the information I just gathered, the person from the Ye family who has changed his behavior recently has finally been found. You definitely can't guess who she is. Yan Patian said anxiously. As Tang Zheng listened to the phone, he looked at the person in the darkness in the distance and asked, "Who is it?" "Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu." Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and shouted subconsciously, staring straight at the figure in the darkness. Never in his dreams would he have thought that the person who was possessed was actually Yi Meiyu. "Hee, you actually found me so quickly. Tang Zheng, your power is indeed powerful. There are very few things in the capital that can be hidden from you." A charming voice came from the darkness. Tang Zheng's head trembled. It was indeed Yi Meiyu's voice. It was just that Yi Meiyu's presence was extremely weak in the past. She was dissolute by nature and had an extremely bad reputation. She didn't have any martial arts skills, nor did she have any career. If not for the fact that he was the daughter of the Ye family, he wouldn't have been able to do well. He didn't expect that he would be possessed this time. "Whose voice is it?" Yan Patian heard a sound and hurriedly asked. "We'll talk about it later." Tang Zheng hung up the phone and stared at the person who was gradually walking out from the darkness. He finally saw the other party's appearance clearly. It was Yi Meiyu. However, the aura around his body had undergone an earth-shattering change. "Yi Meiyu, oh no, I should call you Nightmare," Tang Zheng said. The corner of the other party's mouth curled up into a cold smile, and said, "Nightmare? That's all in the past. I'm Yi Meiyu, not some messy nightmare." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked suspiciously, "You have been possessed, how can you still be Yi Meiyu?" "Haha, who said I was possessed? How could I, Yi Meiyu, be possessed? My era has just begun. How can I die?" "Tang Zheng, what's so good about that little girl Yi Dingdang? You're so loyal to her, yet you don't even look at me?" Yi Meiyu asked hatefully. Without a doubt, Tang Zheng was the first time she had encountered a Waterloo. In the past, countless men had fallen under her pomegranate skirt, but only Tang Zheng had disdained her, ruthlessly striking a blow to her confidence and pride. The hatred she had for Tang Zheng in her bones grew day by day. In the end, a large part of the reason why she and Song Yu were engaged was because she wanted to use Song Yu to ruthlessly attack Tang Zheng. However, he did not expect that Song Yu was too weak and was unable to do so. She was quite frightened by that battle and was lucky enough to keep her life. From then on, she almost never left the house. But then, a turn of events occurred. She discovered that there was suddenly an additional person in her mind. This person did not possess her, because the other party's strength was extremely weak. This person was Nightmare. After Nightmare escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb, he had been bitterly searching for a body to parasitize, but he had never found a suitable candidate until he met Yi Meiyu. But he did not choose to possess her. This was because Yi Meiyu was a one-in-a-million candidate, the second person she had met in so many years who could cultivate the heart's dream traceless technique. Therefore, he had the intention of cherishing talent and was prepared to nurture Yi Meiyu as his direct disciple. He was only temporarily residing in Yi Meiyu's body, and then, he would find an opportunity to find another body to possess. Last time, when Tang Zheng found the Ye family, Nightmare was still residing in Yi Meiyu's body, and had reached the critical moment of cultivation. At that time, he did not choose to fight head-on with Tang Zheng, and after seeing that Tang Zheng had broken through his heart's dream traceless technique, he encouraged Yi Meiyu to escape without a trace. In the following period of time, Yi Meiyu had been wholeheartedly cultivating. Although she was not proficient in literature or martial arts, she was indeed talented in cultivating the traceless dream spell. She improved at a rapid pace, and in the end, she mastered the divine art and destroyed the nightmare along the way. Yi Meiyu was born to be a maverick, and she hated it the most when others judged her actions and life. Relying on his identity, Nightmare naturally did not have a good attitude towards Yi Meiyu. Pointing fingers and even casually insulting her was unavoidable. Nightmare did not know that this had touched Yi Meiyu's bottom line. He even imagined that he would be able to teach a powerful disciple and then shake the world with him. He did not expect that once Yi Meiyu had mastered her divine art, she would turn against him and directly take his life. Yi Meiyu's confidence swelled like never before. She did not listen to Nightmare's advice and directly came to find Tang Zheng for revenge. Her skills were indeed powerful, to the point that even Qi Yu and the inner demons were unable to escape her attack. Hearing Yi Meiyu's question, Tang Zheng coldly retorted, "Yi Meiyu, how can you be compared to Ding Dang? You're not even worthy of carrying her shoes." Yi Meiyu flew into a rage, her face turning sinister. "Yi Ding Dang is nothing. I am more beautiful than her. I am more powerful than her. If I see her again, I will definitely kill her." Tang Zheng's pupils constricted and said with killing intent, "Yi Meiyu, if you dare to do this, not only will I kill you, I will also eradicate the Ye family." Chapter 1078. Yi Meiyu's self-confidence was at an all-time high. Ever since she started cultivating Nightmare's heart dream traceless technique, she had immediately experienced the benefits of being strong. This allowed her to come into contact with a new world. In the past, there was a very important reason why she had abandoned herself. It was because she was not good at martial arts, so she chose to indulge in extravagant desires. She knew very well that many people looked down on her, but she was unwilling to say it out loud. In the past, she had chosen to be an ostrich, turning a blind eye to it and numbing herself. Now, she gradually had a new goal in life. She wanted to be a true expert. She rose to power and made those who looked down on her submit to her. She was the young miss of the Ye family, and she had a golden body. All the glory should belong to her. "Tang Zheng, if you submit to me, obediently become my subject, and personally kill Yi Ding Dang, I can let bygones be bygones and let you live as happily as a god every day." The corner of Yi Meiyu's mouth curled up, revealing a charming expression as she spoke bluntly. Tang Zheng was slightly startled, then shook his head and said, "Yi Meiyu, you've really gone crazy." Power could make a person lose their mind, and so was strength. Yi Meiyu had already lost her mind to her own inner demons. She thought that she was invincible and did not put anyone in her eyes. Actually, this was also related to the fact that Nightmare had bragged to her. Nightmare bragged about his own heart dream traceless technique, as if he was invincible in the world. Yi Meiyu was simple-minded and really believed him. Tang Zheng, quickly ask what this woman meant by what she said earlier. Why has Nightmare become a thing of the past? Qiyu caught the key point in Yi Meiyu's words and asked anxiously. Tang Zheng's heart moved, and he immediately realized this problem, and asked, "Yi Meiyu, you said that Nightmare did not take over your body, then how did you obtain her heart dream traceless technique?" Heh. Yi Meiyu laughed. "It's so simple, you can't even think of the answer? Of course it was me who killed this old fellow. Humph. He even tried to control me and make me his disciple. How could I, Yi Meiyu, submit to him?" "You killed Nightmare?" Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. Qi Yu and the inner demons also cried out in alarm at the same time. They knew very well how powerful the Nightmare was, but they never thought that it would actually die in the hands of a woman like Yi Meiyu after tens of thousands of years. If he had known this would happen, Nightmare Lord would probably have preferred to die in the Battle of Zhualu. Dying like this was just too humiliating. Qi Yu let out a long sigh and faintly said, "The affairs of the world are fickle. A strong person like Nightmare actually died in the hands of such a woman." There was a lot of sighing in his words. The inner demon said, "Taese, this woman is not simple. How did the incubus die in her hands?" This was because she had inherited the traceless dream spell from the Nightmare Lord. This shows that her talent is not simple. As far as I know, from ancient times until now, only Nightmare Lord has this kind of unique talent. I never thought that after tens of thousands of years, another one would appear. Qi Yu was silent for a moment, then sighed. "The affairs of the world are fickle. In the past, no one would have thought that Yi Meiyu would have such a heaven-defying talent. Perhaps this was her opportunity, her fate. She's still a long way from the Nightmare Lord at her peak. While she's still weak, we should get rid of her to prevent future troubles." Qi Yu said resolutely. The inner demons rarely agreed. That makes sense. The two of them understood the power and threat of the Nightmare Lord very well. Naturally, they did not want a second Nightmare Lord to appear in this world. Tang Zheng stared straight at Yi Meiyu and suddenly felt that she was a little pitiful. A person who had lost herself was no different from a walking corpse. Seeing that Tang Zheng did not speak, Yi Meiyu raised her eyebrows and said, "Why aren't you saying anything? I'm 1,000 times better than Yi Dingdang. This choice is very easy. Shut up! Tang Zheng shouted. What qualifications do you have to be compared to Dingdang? You're not even fit to carry her shoes. Yi Meiyu's almond-shaped eyes opened wide, her anger rising as she hissed. Tang Zheng, I gave you face, but you don't want it. You're courting death, go and die. As soon as she finished speaking, she spread out her hands. The aura between heaven and earth became chaotic, and circles of ripples appeared in the air. Her cultivation is very high. You have to be careful. Qi Yu reminded. Right, although she's not a Nightmare Lord, I don't know what method the Nightmare Lord used, but he actually raised her to the Yuanying stage so quickly. The inner demons agreed. Yuanying stage? Tang Zheng was so shocked that his jaw almost fell to the ground. He had experienced many difficulties and obstacles before he could cultivate to the Yuanying stage, and this was already considered an extraordinary talent. How could Yi Meiyu have such achievements in such a short period of time? This cultivation speed almost killed everyone in an instant. Qiyu didn't find it strange and said, Heart's Dream's traceless technique is very different from normal techniques. Back then, Nightmare Lord's cultivation was very weak, but after he comprehended the Heart's Dream's traceless technique, his cultivation soared to the heavens, reaching the spirit-severing stage. It's just that in the later stages, she was weak, and her cultivation stopped at the Mahayana stage. In the end, it was difficult for her to reach the true peak of the Great Tao. She has only just broken through to the Yuanying stage, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Tang Zheng was extremely shocked as if he had been struck by a bell. His eyes widened as he looked at Yi Meiyu in disbelief. In addition, there must be a reason why this woman can reach the Yuanying stage in such a short period of time. This is because she went from an ordinary person to the Yuanying stage. Even with the traceless dream spell, I think it's too fast. Qi Yu added. The inner demon said. Then what other reason do you think there is? I don't know. In short, this woman is definitely not as simple as she looks on the surface. Qi Yu said solemnly. Qi Yu and the inner demons had unique insight and guessed correctly. There was indeed another reason. Not only did Yi Meiyu kill the inner demons, she even used his soul to condense her own Yuanying. The soul of a Mahayana stage ranker condensing a Yuanying was naturally much faster than the usual gradual cultivation of Yuanying. Furthermore, the successful condensed Yuanying would possess many of the abilities of the Nightmare Lord. However, Qi Yu and the inner demons never would have thought that not only did the Nightmare Lord die in grievance, he would not be able to rest in peace after death. Even his soul would be used by Yi Meiyu. Although Yi Meiyu was simple-minded, she was ruthless and had many tricks up her sleeve. Yi Meiyu rushed over, but Tang Zheng did not have much time to be distracted. He summoned his war soul sword and directly welcomed her. With a wave of his sword light flashed and a brilliant might slashed towards her head. As the two sides drew closer and closer, the scene suddenly changed. Tang Zheng was shocked to find that the sword was actually pointing at Yi Dingdang. Ah! He was shocked and quickly put away the war soul sword and asked, Dingdang, why are you here? Tang Zheng, why do you want to kill me? You're so heartless. Yi Dingdang pouted and said, feeling wronged. Tang Zheng smiled. Why would I kill you? This must be a misunderstanding. Yi Dingdang walked over and hooked her lotus-like snow-white arms around Tang Zheng's neck. She was incomparably charming as she blew into Tang Zheng's ear and said, You made me angry. How are you going to apologize? Her pink tongue gently licked Tang Zheng's earlobe, and it was as if an electric current had instantly flowed through Tang Zheng's entire body. Tang Zheng had a strange feeling. Yi Dingdang seemed to be different from usual. She was not this charming, as if she was a completely different person. Young man, wake up. Don't be bewitched. You've been hit by her Heart's Dream traceless spell again. The inner demons reminded him. Tang Zheng, wake up quickly. Qi Yu also shouted loudly. This time, the two of them were on guard and did not fall for Yi Meiyu's trick like Tang Zheng. Seeing that he had entered the dream again, they immediately reminded him. Tang Zheng felt as if he had been hit in the head. His eyes lit up, and when he looked carefully, the one lying on top of him was actually Yi Meiyu. Although Yi Meiyu was beautiful, he had a terrifying feeling of being entangled by a poisonous snake. He immediately slapped her body and scolded, Scram! How dare you turn into Dingdang to confuse me? Yi Meiyu took a palm strike and retreated, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Her face first turned red, then pale white, and a ruthless aura gradually spread out from her eyes. With a sinister expression, she roared, "How did you see through my spell time and time again? How did you do it?" Nightmare had once boasted to her that no one in this world could break through the heart's dream traceless spell, but the first time he clashed with Tang Zhang, his spell was broken and he fled in a sorry state. Later on, Yi Meiyu had also asked him this question. Nightmare stammered, unable to answer. From then on, Nightmare's authority had been greatly reduced, and the little bit of respect Yi Meiyu had for him had disappeared. That was why she had killed him without restraint. This time, seeing that Tang Zhang had continuously broken through her heart's dream traceless spell, Yi Meiyu finally couldn't hold it in anymore and wanted to get to the bottom of it. The heart's dream traceless spell is not omnipotent. How do you know about the heart's dream traceless spell? Yi Meiyu was shocked. This was the first time she had heard someone call out the name of this spell, so she was naturally very surprised. Nightmare had once said that no one in this world would know about this spell, unless it was those people from the ancient era. Nightmare had said very clearly that some of the souls from the ancient era had already escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb and would definitely reappear in this world. Nightmare had also said that once he recovered his strength, he would contact these souls and recreate the glory of the ancient era, achieving true hegemony. He had also revealed that he already had a plan. Once he contacted his old comrades, he would carry out a huge plan. At that time, the world would change color and become another world. Yi Meiyu naturally thought that all of this was just a lie from a nightmare, so she did not take it seriously. However, she remembered the matter regarding the prehistoric heavenly tomb in her heart. Could it be that it was because Tang Zhang had also encountered this kind of soul that he recognized her spell? Even though the Nightmare Lord is strong, he was still killed in the past. If you were a little smarter, then you would understand that heart's dream is not omnipotent. If you continue to rely on this technique and commit crimes, then the one who will suffer in the end will be you. Yi Meiyu said sternly, "What qualifications do you have to preach to me? I'm doing this for your own good. Don't be ungrateful." He, for my own good. Why should I want you to do it for me? Tang Zhang, I'm going to kill you. Yi Meiyu pounced forward crazily once again. Her entire body was covered in black qi, and her appearance had undergone a tremendous change. Chapter 1079. Yi Meiyu changed her appearance, transforming into many huge snake tails. Her pitch-black scales flickered with a faint light, and her head had also turned into a sinister snake head, causing people to shudder in fear. Orochi! She had transformed into the appearance of Orochi. Tang Zhang was stunned for a moment, then cried out in alarm, "Orochi, why is it you again?" He didn't seem to remember that Orochi was already dead. The image of Orochi had once been deeply imprinted in his mind. Yi Meiyu once again used the Heart's Dream Traceless spell and naturally turned into Orochi. The Heart's Dream Traceless spell was very powerful in one aspect, and that was that it could induce certain thoughts in the depths of a person's heart. It could catch them off guard, and even evoke the deepest fear in a person's heart when they were not even aware of it. In the dream, she could transform into anything. This was all an illusion, but the damage she caused was incomparably real. "Tang Zhang, wake up!" Qiyu shouted. Tang Zhang's entire body quivered, as if an electric current was flowing through his body. He walked out of the dream and saw that Yi Meiyu had already attacked in front of him. His eyes turned cold, and he could not help but feel a bit of fear. He was not as powerful as Qiyu and the inner demon. Even if he knew that the other party had such a strange spell, it would be difficult for him to defend against it. He would involuntarily fall into the dream. Fortunately, there were Qiyu and the inner demons, these two powerful fellows. Otherwise, if he were to face Yi Meiyu alone, he would not be able to gain much of an advantage. Seeing that Tang Zhang had woken up once again, a cold light flashed in Yi Meiyu's hand, and a sword appeared. It was like autumn water, and the sword light rippled, pointing straight at Tang Zhang's heart. Crack! The War Soul Sword appeared once again. It streaked across the air and landed on the sword, splitting it into two. The War Soul Sword went straight for Yi Meiyu's vitals. Yi Meiyu's eyes flashed with panic as she retreated in panic. However, the War Soul Sword had completely enveloped her, leaving her with no way out. Clang! Suddenly, a green light descended from the sky and landed on the War Soul Sword. With a crisp sound, the War Soul Sword tilted to the side, and the huge rebound force caused Tang Zhang to almost lose his grip on the Warsoul sword. Intense pain and numbness spread from his palm to his entire body in an instant. Tang Zhang was shocked and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. This green light was not Yi Meiyu's attack, but an unfamiliar woman beside her. She was holding a weeping willow in her hand. It was lush green and exuded vitality. Heartless willow! Qi Yu and the inner demons shouted in unison. Tang Zheng's head jerked, and he hurriedly asked, "What heartless willow? Didn't we tell you before that in ancient times, the Yellow Emperor had a fierce female general under his command? The heartless willow is her magic treasure," Qi Yu said with a complicated tone. Tang Zhang suddenly opened his eyes wide and stared straight at the unfamiliar woman in front of him. Her waist was wide and fat, her face was filled with hardships, her hands were filled with calluses, her face was filled with fierceness, her aura was extremely sharp, her domineering aura leaked out, and she did not have the slightest bit of weakness of a woman. "Heartless willow, who exactly are you?" Tang Zheng asked warily. She raised her thick eyebrows, and her face was filled with a ferocious expression that could almost scare a child to tears. She opened her bloody mouth and clicked her tongue in admiration. "You actually know my transcendent artifact? Who told you? Who doesn't know the magic treasure of the general under the Yellow Emperor?" You even know about the Yellow Emperor?" The other party was truly surprised. "Since you recognize the Heartless Willow, then you should naturally know who the owner of the Heartless Willow is." Her voice was powerful and resonant, as if she was using a loudspeaker to amplify her voice. "Lu Wuxin, she is Lu Wuxin." Qi Yu let out a long sigh and said faintly. In ancient times, Lu Wuxin was not only an amazing cultivator, but also an outstanding beauty. How could she look like this? Lu Wuxin is not dead. How many of those old things have come back to life? The inner demons could not hide their surprise and clicked their tongue in wonder. Could Lu Wuxin be the very powerful female general you were talking about? Tang Zhang cursed inwardly and hurriedly asked. "You are very smart, you guessed right." The inner demons sighed. "Qi Yu, you really have a crow's mouth. Speak of the devil and he will appear. This Lu Wuxin's cultivation is obviously not weak. If the two of them join hands to fight me, won't I have little chance of winning?" Tang Zhang complained incessantly. "That might not be the case." Qi Yu retorted, "Lu Wuxin was very powerful back then, but she is now the same as Nightmare. Her strength has been greatly reduced, and she is no longer as strong as she was back then. On the contrary, your cultivation is higher than both of them." "Really?" Tang Zhang was both surprised and happy. "Of course it's true." Qi Yu nodded. "Their souls have experienced tens of thousands of years and are no longer as valiant as they were back then. Now that they have just been reborn, their strength has been greatly reduced and cannot be compared to you. However, these people have a lot of battle experience and have many mysterious techniques, so they definitely cannot be underestimated." Tang Zhang nodded heavily, indicating that he understood. Lu Wuxin stared at Tang Zhang with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to see through him. Yi Meiyu looked at this uninvited guest curiously and asked, "Who are you?" "You are Nightmare's disciple, and Nightmare and I are old friends, so we are together." Lu Wuxin's gaze turned and landed on Yi Meiyu's body. Yi Meiyu frowned. Just now, when she saw Lu Wuxin make a move, she naturally understood how powerful the other party was. She did not rashly contradict her, but instead had an idea. Since she is an old friend of that old thing, Nightmare, then wouldn't I be able to use her to deal with Tang Zheng? Yi Meiyu had fought with Tang Zheng a few times, and seeing that he could easily break through her traceless dream technique, she gradually stopped underestimating him. However, her hatred for Tang Zheng did not decrease in the slightest, but instead became more and more intense. "Lu Wuxin, you claim to be smart, but you still don't know that you've been deceived by others? The person in front of you is not a good person. It is true that she is Nightmare's disciple, but Nightmare died in his hands. You and Nightmare are old friends. Don't tell me that you don't want to take revenge for your old friend?" Tang Zhang had an idea and asked back. Yi Meiyu's expression changed slightly as she berated sternly, "Tang Zheng, you're spouting nonsense." "What? Nightmare is dead? What's going on?" Lu Wuxin turned pale with fright. Yi Meiyu's tears streamed down her face as she said with a tearful face, "Senior, Master died so miserably. At the critical moment of possession, he was disturbed by this Tang Zhang and then killed by him." Yi Meiyu's acting skills were top-notch, and her ability to play the blame game was at its peak, successfully deceiving Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin flew into a rage, his eyes blazing as he stared at Tang Zheng, gritted his teeth and said, "Tang Zheng, no matter how you try to sow discord, I will not fall for your trick. You brat, you do not know how powerful Nightmare is, so, how could she possibly kill Nightmare? Your method is too clumsy, you can't fool me. Therefore you must die." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully, "Yi Meiyu, I have truly underestimated you. You are so quick-witted, and your acting skills are so high." Yi Meiyu sneered in her heart and said pitifully, "Tang Zheng, not only did you kill Master, you even came to bully me, you are truly ruthless. Senior, you must avenge Master and uphold justice for me." With that, he looked at Lu Wuxin with tears in his eyes. Lu Wuxin was furious, his face was ashen, the heartless willow in his hand emitted a green light, emitting a mysterious and terrifying aura. Yi Meiyu glanced at Lu Wuxin without leaving a trace. Seeing that she had completely believed her words, she couldn't help but reveal an imperceptible smile. She thought to herself, these old things don't know how to keep up with the times, they're too easy to deceive. First, I'll deceive her to deal with Tang Zheng. Previously, Lu Wuxin had personally admitted that he had killed Nightmare, but Lu Wuxin had arrived too late and did not see this. However, she already knew beforehand that Yi Meiyu was Nightmare's disciple. Back then, when Nightmare was still in Yi Meiyu's body, he had tried his best to contact his old friend, Lu Wuxin, and had her come to the capital to discuss the grand plan. He had also told her that he had found a very satisfactory successor. Lu Wuxin had just arrived at the capital tonight, and unintentionally discovered the battle between Tang Zheng and Yi Meiyu. Naturally, he recognized that Yi Meiyu was Nightmare's disciple, so he naturally could not stand by and watch. Tang Zheng shook his head helplessly. He knew that no matter what he said, the other party would not believe him, so he did not say anything else. Since Qi Yu had asserted that the other party's cultivation was inferior to his, then there was nothing to worry about. Lu Wuxin's killing intent had already accumulated to its peak. He walked towards Tang Zheng step by step. His footsteps were heavy and powerful. With every step he took, his wide feet left deep footprints on the stone ground, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. The heartless willow was full of green, swaying in the wind. Suddenly, Lu Wuxin's wrist moved slightly, and a green light burst out from the heartless willow, shooting towards Tang Zheng. The heartless willow is a sacred artifact. You must be careful, Qi Yu warned. Sacred artifact? Tang Zheng's head trembled. He immediately took out his war soul sword. The sword light shone brightly. Immediately fighting with the heartless willow, the green light and the sword light intertwined in the air. It was exceptionally dazzling. A sword came from the west, flying immortal from beyond the heavens. When Tang Zheng used the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, the power of the war soul sword increased greatly. The heartless willow swayed in the wind, its branches flying long and dancing in the air, like a long whip, fiercely lashing at the war soul sword. The war soul sword's sword light blazed as it quickly counterattacked. Ping ping pang pang. Qi flew everywhere. The surrounding buildings were affected. Large holes appeared on the walls, and the trees were cut in half. It was as if a typhoon had passed through, turning everything into ruins. The heartless willow was still growing crazily. This small alley was almost filled with willow branches. There were willow branches all around, full of green, but in reality, it was filled with killing intent. Tang Zheng swung his sword and slashed. The heartless willow was cut in half, but it quickly grew back. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a green light flashed, and the leaves on the willow branches flew up, like sharp flying knives, shooting towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's surroundings were filled with willow leaves, covering the sky and the sun. Sacred armor shield. Tang Zheng roared, and the sacred armor shield appeared out of thin air. Ding-dang, the willow leaves that filled the sky hit the sacred armor shield. The huge rebound force caused Tang Zheng's body and mind to tremble. Lu Ye's attack was nullified by the sacred armor shield. Tang Zheng thrusted with his sword, and with a piercing sound, the willow branch was cut off again. The war soul sword turned into a ray of sword light and left his hand, flying through the thousands of willow branches towards Lu Wuxin, who was behind the layers of barriers. A willow branch jumped out from the heartless willow, trying to bind the war soul sword, but it was immediately torn into pieces by the berserk sword Qi, and the war soul sword went straight in. seeing that it was about to pierce into Lu Wuxin's body. Lu Wuxin roared, and quickly retreated with Yi Meiyu. Boom! The War Soul sword pierced into the wall behind them, causing it to collapse with a loud bang, causing dust to fill the sky. Chapter 1080. The powerful might of the War Soul sword caused Lu Wuxin's expression to change greatly. She looked at him deeply and said, "Tang Zheng, I will come and find you again." After she finished speaking, a willow branch suddenly shot out from the heartless willow in her hand and soared into the sky. She and Yi Meiyu stepped on the willow branch and soared into the sky. "Where are you going?" Tang Zheng growled. The War Soul sword flew into the air and slashed at the willow branch with a so sound. The willow branch broke, but it did not fall to the ground. Instead, it relied on an invisible force to quickly grow, and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Don't chase after her. Although Lu Wuxin's cultivation is not as good as yours, she has a lot of methods. Her ability to escape is definitely above yours. You won't be able to catch up. Qiyu advised. Tang Zheng had no choice but to stop and say faintly, "Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu have both escaped. These two will definitely not let this go. They will definitely come and find trouble with me in the future. This is inevitable. Now that the two generals under the Yellow Emperor have appeared together, isn't this a good thing?" Qiyu said worriedly, as if deep in thought. "Is there a problem?" Tang Zheng did not understand. The inner demons explained, "The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates have been resurrected, so of course he would be unhappy. The Yellow Emperor is his old enemy." Qiyu said snappily, "Inner demons, you're old and confused. Am I really such a petty person? Aren't you?" The inner demons asked. Qiyu said angrily, "Don't tell me you didn't think about what would happen if the people under the Yellow Emperor gathered their old subordinates once again?" The inner demons was startled, as if they had been enlightened by these words. "You're saying that they plan to regroup and make a comeback? Is that not possible?" Qiyu asked. The inner demons fell silent. This question had stumped him. It was indeed possible. After a while, the inner demons said solemnly, "The Yellow Emperor is dead. Even if they want to make a comeback, what chance do they have? It's hard to say what's going on in the world. Back then, I was able to preserve a sliver of my soul during the Battle of Zhuelu, let alone the scheming Yellow Emperor. Can you be sure that he didn't leave behind any backup plans?" This question made the inner demons fall silent again. Tang Zheng recalled that back in the desolate heavenly tomb, Tian Chanzi had been possessed by a strand of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul on the bronze coffin, and had even tried to kill Tang Zheng. Later on, after the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had disappeared, Tian Chanzi had even profited from this disaster and increased his cultivation. Could it be that other than that strand of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, there were other Yellow Emperor's souls in this world? He couldn't think of an answer because even Qiyu and the inner demons didn't know the real answer. The inner demons hesitated for a long time before finally saying, "If the Yellow Emperor really has a way to survive, then wouldn't he be competing with your old rival again?" Qiyu coldly snorted and didn't comment. Tang Zheng's expression changed as he muttered to himself, "Qiyu is in my body. If the Yellow Emperor comes to deal with Qiyu, then wouldn't I be the first to bear the brunt of it?" "Hee hee, young man, you're quite smart. Now you understand how dangerous it is to have Qiyu in your body. He's simply a ticking time bomb." The inner demons gloated. Qiyu flew into a rage. "Inner demons, you're talking nonsense. Don't make it sound like you're related to the Yellow Emperor. You're also a thorn in the side of the Yellow Emperor. If the Yellow Emperor knows that you're in Tang Zheng's body, I'm afraid that he won't be able to wait to destroy you," Qiyu impatiently retorted. Hearing the two bickering, Tang Zheng felt a headache coming on. He held his forehead and said worriedly, "You two aren't easy to deal with. I'm really unlucky to have let you two enter my body." Qiyu and the inner demons immediately fell silent. Clearly, they didn't want to provoke Tang Zheng. "What should we do now? Is there any way to find these two?" Tang Zheng was silent for a moment and then asked. Qiyu said faintly, "These two have a primitive aura on them. It's just that it's beyond the range of my perception, so I can't find them for the time being. Don't tell me that I'm just going to let the other party spy on me. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll encounter a sudden attack." Tang Zheng asked in annoyance. "No, they've tested your true strength this time. They won't act rashly again." Qiyu hurriedly comforted him. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "What if they don't do as you say?" "They won't. Lu Wuxin is a very steady person. She won't act rashly unless she has full confidence. You can rest assured about this," Qi Yu said solemnly. The inner demons agreed. Qi Yu didn't lie about this. Many people knew about Lu Wuxin's temperament back then. She always strives for stability. Then what do you think she'll do next? On one hand, she'll work hard to cultivate and strive to reach the next level. On the other hand, if she really has other motives, then she'll definitely gather the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates and rise again in winter. Qi Yu analyzed. "What do you think, inner demons?" Tang Zheng asked. "I agree." Tang Zheng fell into silence. Lu Wuxin's appearance had caught him off guard. Most importantly, Xiaobai hadn't been found yet. After a comprehensive analysis of this trip to the inner palace, he was afraid that the bureau chief really didn't have the strength to capture Xiaobai. Then where did Xiaobai go? And who was the one who took him away? This was a huge mystery. He hesitated whether or not to return to the inner palace, but after thinking for a while, he decided to give up. Since he believed that the bureau chief couldn't capture Xiaobai, there was no point in continuing to pester the bureau chief. He couldn't possibly kill the other party, could he? That would escalate the situation and eventually cause irreparable damage. There must be some clues. Xiaobai isn't an ordinary pet. The person who wants to capture him must have a high enough cultivation. There are many experts in the capital, but there are very few who have the ability to capture Xiaobai. All of a sudden, he could not help but look up and actually saw a sky full of stars, which was quite rare. A light flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly slapped his head and exclaimed, "I almost overlooked this point. This is too important. The power of the stars. Yes, this is the key." He immediately recalled the clues from before and finally realized that according to the time, when Little White and Little Yu Yu were attacked, there was a change in the power of the stars in the sky. The mighty power of the stars descended from the sky and enveloped the capital city. The others did not notice it, but Tang Zheng, who was extremely sensitive to the power of the stars, would not ignore it. It was just that he had never connected this matter to the capture of Xiaobai. He found his direction again, his eyes flashing as he looked in a certain direction. In the capital, there was only one person who could activate the power of the stars, and that was Ji Wuxiang. With the help of the heavenly chess, he could freely activate the power of the stars. Could this be related to him? Tang Zheng had long suspected Ji Wuxiang, and this time, there were many suspicious points, so he naturally would not let them go. Thus, he made a prompt decision and disappeared into the darkness in a flash. Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu only stopped when they reached a safe place. Their eyes met, and Lu Wuxin's eyes, which were as bright as night pearls, stared straight at Yi Meiyu, as if they could see through her heart. Yi Meiyu pretended to be magnanimous, as if she did not hide anything. All these years in a famous family, she had already learned how to hide and act, so dealing with Lu Wuxin was a piece of cake for her. "Senior, are we safe?" Yi Meiyu pretended to be in a state of shock and asked. Lu Wuxin nodded coldly and asked, "It's the middle of the night, why are you looking for Tang Zheng?" Yi Meiyu's eyes reddened, and she said with great emotion, "Senior, I know that Master died at his hands, and I know that I am not his match, but when I think of Master's tragic death, my heart feels like it's being twisted by a knife, and I want to take revenge for Master. With your little cultivation, you are not his match at all. How are you going to avenge your master?" "Foolish!" Lu Wuxin reprimanded without any trace of politeness. Yi Meiyu lowered her head and said righteously, "Yes, but for Master, I will not hesitate to sacrifice myself. Your intentions are very good, but you cannot act rashly. We should think about it carefully. Tang Zheng's cultivation is stronger than ours, but that is only temporary. With me here, not only my cultivation, but even your cultivation can quickly increase. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. We will take revenge in the future," Lu Wuxin said resolutely. Yi Meiyu's lowered eyes flashed with an imperceptible sense of pride, and said, "I will listen to Senior's instructions. We still have more important things to do, so let him live for a few more days." Lu Wuxin gritted his teeth and said, "Senior, what do we have to do? This matter is of great importance. It is the greatest mission and wish of me and your master, Nightmare. Since your master is no longer here, then this mission will fall on your shoulders." Lu Wuxin patted Yi Meiyu's shoulder with his thick palm and reminded her. Yi Meiyu had an idea and said, "Senior, don't worry, I will definitely complete Master's last wish." Lu Wuxin looked at Yi Meiyu with gratification and praised, "Nightmare really took in a good disciple, no wonder he was so satisfied and passed on his lifelong secret to you. This is all because of Master's love. I will remember it in my heart." Yi Meiyu said without changing her expression, "What exactly is this matter?" "You'll know when the time comes." Lu Wuxin did not say it out loud. Yi Meiyu also did not ask any further, thinking that she would know one day. "Right now, our top priority is to find a like-minded old friend," Lu Wuxin said. "Oh, what old friend?" "The old friends of your master and I, the souls that escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb, must have already found a new body. It's time to gather them," Lu Wuxin said excitedly, ready to move. Yi Meiyu's heart skipped a beat, and asked, "Where are we going to find them in this vast sea of people?" "There will always be a way." Chapter 1081. Lu Wuxin looked at her in astonishment, as if he did not expect her to have a way, so he asked, "What method do you have? Tell me about it." Yi Meiyu said, "If you want to gather your old subordinates, then you must need their information. In this vast sea of people, finding them is like finding a needle in a haystack. Therefore, if we have a large amount of information, wouldn't we be able to find them even faster?" Lu Wuxin's eyes lit up, as if he was deep in thought. "That's a good idea, but where is the information we want?" "I know a person. He definitely has the information you want." "Who is it?" Yi Meiyu purposely kept him in suspense. "Senior, we'll know when we get there. This way, please." After passing through the streets and alleys, the two of them arrived at a high wall. Lu Wuxin looked deeply into the high wall and said, "What is this place?" There are quite a few martial artists among them. Although Lu Wuxin was from the ancient era, he still knew the difference between martial artists and cultivators. Naturally, he could feel the auras within the high wall. Yi Meiyu laughed. "Of course there will be martial artists. This is the great inner palace, and the people at the top of the country live inside." Lu Wuxin still had a certain understanding of modern society, and understood what Yi Meiyu's words meant. However, she did not put the so-called power level in her eyes at all. In her heart, other than the Yellow Emperor, no one else was worth fearing. "You have a relationship with the people inside?" Lu Wuxin asked suspiciously. "I can pull the strings. If Senior talks to him, he will have everything Senior wants," Yi Meiyu said with a smile. Lu Wuxin thoughtfully nodded his head. "That's a good idea." As soon as she finished speaking, she soared into the air and jumped over the high wall. Yi Meiyu was slightly startled, but then she felt relieved and also jumped over the high wall. "Who is it?" A few shouts rang out as a large group of guards swarmed over. Lu Wuxin did not even look at these people. With a wave of his hand, the Wuxin willow in his hand transformed into a long willow branch that flew out and wrapped around these people. One by one, they were thrown out and landed on the surrounding roofs. Such a huge commotion immediately attracted the attention of even more people. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots rang out, and bullets filled the sky directly towards the two of them like a tidal wave. Lu Wuxin's eyes flashed with cold light. Swish, swish, swish. The willow leaves on the willow branch transformed into rays of green light that pierced through the bodies of these people like lancet knives. Immediately, these people fell to the ground with a loud bang. Lu Wuxin walked toward the innermost area as if he had entered an uninhabited area. Yi Meiyu followed behind her with a smile. Originally, the bureau chief and Yi Xuanji were still having a long talk. Tang Zheng's trip had left a deep impression on the bureau chief, making him experience the true threat and fear of death. It turned out that even though he was in a high position, it wasn't absolutely safe. In front of a powerhouse like Tang Zheng, he actually felt a trace of inferiority. He suddenly had a desire to become stronger. In addition to power, he had a new goal. However, after a long conversation with Yi Xuanji still couldn't think of a way to make him stronger no matter how hard he tried. After all, he wasn't young anymore. For a martial artist, he was already past the age to practice martial arts. He was extremely disappointed and sat back down heavily on the chair, unable to hide the disappointment on his face. Yi Xuanji's thoughts were complicated. This time, Tang Zheng's actions had caused him a great shock. He had been running the Ye family for so many years and had grown stronger day by day, but he still didn't dare to go against the bureau chief. Now, he even had to act according to the bureau chief's mood. Compared to Tang Zheng, the difference was obvious. It made him feel a deep sense of defeat. He had worked hard his entire life, but he couldn't compare to Tang Zheng in just a few years. The gap was too big. Suddenly, Yi Xuanji's expression changed drastically as he looked outside the door. The sounds of fighting and shouting immediately came from outside. The bureau chief also heard it and immediately sat up straight, frowning as he looked outside the door. "I'll go and see what's going on," Yi Xuanji took the initiative to say. Yi Xuanji stood up and walked out. Before he reached the door, he saw a woman walking towards him. His pupils suddenly constricted, and all the hairs on his body stood up. Because, from the other party, he felt a strong sense of danger. Who is this woman? Where did this expert come from? I can't see through her at all. Yi Xuanji was shocked. Lu Wuxin walked over expressionlessly and looked at Yi Xuanji coldly. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. Then, he looked inside the house and immediately locked onto the bureau chief. He strode into the house. "Stop!" Yi Xuanji of course couldn't sit still and immediately shouted to stop him. Lu Wuxin acted as if he didn't hear him. Yi Xuanji's face was as red as blood. He took a step forward and blocked Lu Wuxin's path. Lu Wuxin was still looking forward. The heartless willow in his hand flashed with a green light and the willow branches grew crazily, immediately wrapping around Yi Xuanji's leg. With a fierce pull, Yi Xuanji was hung upside down like a lantern, hanging at the door. Yi Xuanji was furious and reacted quickly. The sword in his hand flashed and directly chopped at the willow branch. Kacha! The willow branch broke. Yi Xuanji regained his freedom and landed on the ground in a sorry state. He saw Lu Wuxin had already walked through the door. Yi Xuanji was about to shout when he saw a slender woman standing in front of him. It was his granddaughter, Yi Meiyu. "Meiyu, why are you here?" Yi Meiyu glanced at him indifferently and said, "Why can't I come here?" "Of course you can't come," Yi Xuanji roared. He had suffered such a huge loss in front of his own granddaughter. He felt that he had lost all face, so his temper was naturally not good. The corner of Yi Meiyu's mouth curled up into a cold smile as she said, "Of course I can come to a place that you can't come to. I can still come to a place that you can't come to." "Meiyu, how dare you speak to me in such a tone?" Yi Xuanji did not know that Yi Meiyu was no longer the same as before, nor did he know anything about what had happened to her. His impression of her was still the same as before. Towards this granddaughter of his, Yi Xuanji racked his brains and chose to ignore her in the end. Therefore, even if Yi Meiyu wasn't at home during this period of time, and even if there were many changes, he didn't notice it at all. Yi Meiyu said lightly, "You've never thought highly of me, so why can't I use this tone to talk to you? Don't take advantage of your seniority, your time has passed, don't look for trouble yourself." Yi Xuanji was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. In the Yi family, his words carried weight, and his dignity could not be provoked in the slightest. But at this moment, Yi Meiyu dared to speak to him in such a manner. He really had the heart to kill her. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Yi Meiyu did not take him seriously at all and walked around him into the house. Yi Xuanji suddenly reached out and grabbed her. He decided to teach her a lesson and let her know what it meant to respect her elders. Just as his hand was about to grab Yi Meiyu, a slender and fair palm came forward and slapped his palm. After a muffled sound, Yi Xuanji staggered back. He looked at Yi Meiyu in disbelief, then looked at his own palm. It was as if he had seen a ghost, and his eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. In the past few years, Yi Xuanji had already received quite a bit of shock, but this time, he was truly frightened. Yi Meiyu was his granddaughter that he was extremely familiar with. It had been more than 20 years, and he knew her very well. When did she become so powerful? Hidden deep? Absolutely impossible. To hide from his eyes for so many years, unless he was blind and deaf. However, the scene in front of him was incomparably real, and it was impossible for it to be fake. Especially the power that was transmitted back from his palm. Even his qi and blood were churning. "Meiyu, what's going on?" Yi Xuanji could not help but ask. Yi Meiyu looked at him coldly and smiled complacently. "Your era has passed. The future of the Ye family depends on me. You. Yi Xuanji almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was flushed red and he was unable to say a word. However, he was already helpless. The difference in strength between the two of them was too obvious. He had worked hard for his entire life, but his achievements were actually inferior to his own granddaughter. This was truly a huge joke. In an instant, he seemed to have aged 10 years, and wrinkles appeared on his face. Yi Meiyu did not look at him anymore and directly walked into the room. Lu Wuxin had already walked in front of the bureau chief. The bureau chief's expression kept changing. He was also at a loss for what to do. Of course he knew Yi Meiyu, but he never thought that she would be so powerful, to actually suppress Yi Xuanji. This was too unreasonable. Could it be that this pair of grandfather and grandson were acting for him? Impossible. Judging from Yi Xuanji's reaction, he did not know about it beforehand. Then that did not make sense. When did Yi Meiyu become so powerful? This was definitely not a long time, but an extremely short period of time. The bureau chief's eyes lit up. If Yi Meiyu became stronger in an extremely short period of time, wouldn't that mean that he also had the chance? He stared at Yi Meiyu with a burning gaze, his eyes almost blooming with light. I need you to give me information. Lu Wuxin went straight to the point and said his opening words without any trace of politeness. The bureau chief's gaze was immediately attracted back to Lu Wuxin, and he asked with a serious expression, May I ask who you are to dare to barge into my residence at night? Lu Wuxin. These 3 words floated in the air. A look of suspicion flashed across the bureau chief's eyes. He had never heard of this name before and could not help but be puzzled. A person with such strength in this world should not be a nobody. Where did she come from? Yi Xuanji also had the same question in his heart, but he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. What information do you need me to provide you? The bureau chief asked with interest. If the other party had a request, then he would be safe. This meant that the other party was not targeting him. Otherwise, experiencing 2 battles against him in one night would probably leave a serious psychological shadow in his heart. Chapter 1082. Lu Wuxin had the same idea as Qi Yu and the others. Lu Wuxin wanted to find the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor, which meant that he was counting on the souls that had escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The only way to find them was to collect information about the unusual situations in various places. The Li Palace was already investigating this matter. This time, Lu Wuxin had also found the bureau chief to seek information about this. The bureau chief looked at Lu Wuxin in surprise, and asked with a frown, Why do you want to know this information? I naturally have my own uses. Lu Wuxin did not reveal his true purpose. The bureau chief hesitated for a moment and did not get to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he glanced at the numerous guards who were chasing after them at the entrance. These people were really scared out of their wits. The inner palace was so heavily guarded, yet these 2 women were able to barge in as if they were in a deserted land. This was a huge dereliction of duty on their part. If anything were to happen to the bureau chief, they would not be able to atone for it even if they died 100 times. All of you can leave. The bureau chief waved his hand and said with some magnanimity. The guards all looked at the bureau chief. They did not know if his words came out of his own will or if he was coerced. For a moment, they were hesitant. The bureau chief frowned and said, Didn't you hear my order? Seeing that, the guards scattered like birds and beasts, retreating far away. Their expressions were complicated as they stared at them with extreme caution. Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu acted as if they did not see this scene at all, as they remained calm and collected. The bureau chief looked at Yi Xuanji thoughtfully and said, You can go back first. Yi Xuanji was slightly startled. He did not expect the bureau chief to chase him out. He hurriedly said, Bureau chief, I'll stay behind to protect you. No need. The bureau chief's attitude was firm, and the way he looked at Yi Xuanji was extremely calm. Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with Yi Xuanji's performance just now. He was unable to stop Tang Zheng, nor was he able to stop these 2 people. Even his own granddaughter was unable to contend against them. This kind of person who held the title of patriarch of the Ye family, how useful could he be to him? Yi Xuanji naturally thought of this as well, and his expression became even more dejected. He took a deep look at Yi Meiyu and Lu Wuxin, then dejectedly retreated like a general who had lost a battle, closing the door behind him. From the beginning to the end, Yi Meiyu did not look at all. She glanced at Yi Xuanji, as if his loss did not cause the slightest ripple in her heart. "Both of you, please take a seat." The bureau chief pointed at the chairs and invited them. Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu sat down casually, and Lu Wuxin asked, "Do you have the information we need?" The bureau chief's lips curled into a smile as he said, "I can collect any information in this world. You don't have to doubt this. But there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. What can you do for me if I provide you with information?" After saying that, half of the bureau chief's body leaned against the large chair as he looked at the two of them with sparkling eyes. "You!" Lu Wuxin was about to reprimand him for being as blind as a bat for daring to negotiate with her. At the critical moment, Yi Meiyu pulled her back and whispered, "Senior, let me talk to him." Yi Meiyu was very clear about the power and strength that the bureau chief represented. Now that he had already established a big enemy like Tang Zheng, there was no need to break ties with the bureau chief. On the contrary, cooperation between the two sides was the biggest win-win situation. Moreover, she believed that the bureau chief had long regarded Tang Zheng as a thorn in his side. This could be heard from the conversation between Yi Xuanji and Yi Ku. As a core member of the Ye family, Yi Meiyu was naturally more well-informed than the average person, so it was not difficult to speculate this point. Lu Wuxin glanced at Yi Meiyu and chose to remain silent. "Bureau chief, I understand what you mean. What do you want for you to agree to provide us with information?" Yi Meiyu asked. The bureau chief stared at Yi Meiyu with a burning gaze, and sighed after a long time. Yi Xuanji really made a mistake. It turns out that the most powerful person in the Ye family is you, and the person with the greatest achievements will definitely be you. It was a huge mistake for him to hand over the future of the Ye family to Yi Ku. You are a smart person, so I won't beat around the bush. You are all cultivators, and I also want to become a cultivator. I want to become stronger in the shortest time possible like you. Yi Meiyu said calmly, "Bureau chief has excellent vision to actually see this point. In the future, personal strength is the most important thing. So what if you have great power? You can't bring it with you when you are born, and you can't bring it with you when you die. Is there a way to do this?" The bureau chief ignored Yi Meiyu's flattery and asked straightforwardly. Yi Meiyu turned to look at Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin was expressionless. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Your method is not difficult. There are many ways to become a cultivator. Not only do I want to become a cultivator, but I also want to become strong enough." The bureau chief emphasized. He did not choose to become a martial artist, but a cultivator. This was because he had seen too many miracles from cultivators, and naturally believed that cultivators were higher than martial artists. He had always pursued the extreme, and cultivators were the extreme. Lu Wuxin nodded without hesitation. "No problem. Is there really a way?" The bureau chief raised his eyebrows and was quite moved. "This may be difficult for others, but for me, it is not difficult. As long as you find the information I want, everything will be solved," Lu Wuxin said with certainty. "Another question. What do you want this information for?" The bureau chief asked curiously. "The secret to becoming stronger is in this information. If you want to become stronger as soon as possible, then find everything I want as soon as possible." Lu Wuxin didn't try to explain too much, and instead said very calmly. The bureau chief paused for a moment, slammed the table and said excitedly, "Okay, I will give the order now, and there will be results soon. How do I contact you?" "Just send someone to the Ye family," Yi Meiyu said first. "Also, we have a common enemy, so our cooperation is a win-win situation. In the future, we will definitely cause a fatal threat and harm to this enemy." Yi Meiyu gritted her teeth and said. The bureau chief looked at her suspiciously and asked, "Who is our common enemy?" "Tang Zheng. It's him." The bureau chief was obviously shocked. Not only did Tang Zheng threaten the big families, he even extended his devil's claws to the officials, to the bureau chief side. "Just now, I knew that the bureau chief sent someone to summon the old master to deal with him. But now that his wings are growing, ordinary people can't hurt him at all. Only our alliance can give him a fatal blow in the future and take revenge," Yi Meiyu said with killing intent. The bureau chief's heart sank into torment, but he quickly made a decision. Watching the two of them leave, The bureau chief fell into deep thought. His brows were knitted tightly and relaxed at times. In the end, his eyes shone with anticipation. He picked up the phone on the table and gave the order. Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu left the courtyard house. When they walked out of the door, they saw Yi Xuanji waiting outside. Wait a moment. Yi Xuanji walked up and blocked their path. Lu Wuxin looked at him coldly and asked, "Do you want to die? I can fulfill your wish." Yi Xuanji's face was pale as he explained awkwardly, "Don't misunderstand, I don't have any hostility, I just want to find out what happened to my granddaughter." With that, he turned his head and stared straight at Yi Meiyu. In the end, he had no choice but to connect the matter of the possession that Tang Zhang had mentioned a while ago. Yi Meiyu had suddenly become strong. Could it be that she had been possessed by someone? He was not completely ignorant about possession. He understood that a stronger soul had taken over the body, which was equivalent to a different person. Could it be that the granddaughter standing in front of him had another strange soul in her body? Yi Xuanji was shocked by his own thoughts, as if he wanted to distinguish the difference in Yi Meiyu's body. In the end, he sadly discovered that there were too many differences in Yi Meiyu's body. It was as if she had changed into another person. "Meiyu, what's going on? Is this still you?" Yi Xuanji's voice trembled as he asked in a low voice. The corner of Yi Meiyu's mouth curled up and she said, "Of course I'm not the same as before. This is a brand new Yi Meiyu. Didn't you always value that girl Yi Dingdang and treat me as a woman who is not important or even a disgrace to your family? Let me tell you today, what Yi Dingdang can't do, I can do. What I can do, Yi Dingdang might not be able to do. I am the true hope of the Ye family." Although Yi Meiyu was strong, she still did not abandon the deep-rooted family concept of the Ye family. Instead, it was branded deep in her bones. Hearing that, Yi Xuanji thought hard, his eyes widened even more, but after racking his brains, he still couldn't figure it out. He was unable to determine if she had been possessed or not, because no one else could have said those words. "You haven't been possessed?" Yi Xuanji asked, unwilling to give up. Yi Meiyu's eyelids twitched, she glanced at Lu Wuxin from the corner of her eyes, and said calmly, "Where did you hear this nonsense? How could I be possessed? I am Yi Meiyu, the real deal." "Then how did you become so powerful?" "This is all thanks to Master. You won't be able to understand." Yi Meiyu smiled and pretended to be mysterious as she spoke. "Who is your master? For the Ye family to nurture such a powerful person, I, Yi Xuanji, should pay him a visit and express my gratitude." Yi Xuanji rolled his eyes and said sincerely, "Master has already passed away. You won't be able to see him anymore." "Ah, this is truly a great pity. May I ask what your master's name is? I will definitely remember it in my heart in the future." Yi Xuanji said. "Nightmare." Lu Wuxin answered first. "Nightmare?" Yi Xuanji had even more questions in his heart. He wanted to ask further, but the other party no longer had the desire to continue, and said coldly, "Yi Meiyu, let's go." Chapter 1083. Watching Yi Meiyu and Lu Wuxin walk away, Yi Xuanji didn't have a chance to ask any questions. He returned to the Ye family in a daze. Yi Ke quickly greeted him and asked, "Grandpa, why did the chief summon you so late at night?" Yi Xuanji raised his head and glanced at his grandson. His face was full of loneliness and he didn't say a word. Yi Ke was shocked. She had never seen the old man like this before. She quickly asked, "Grandpa, what happened?" "Xiao Ku, have you noticed anything unusual with Meiyu recently?" Yi Xuanji asked. Yi Ke was confused and said, "I have been busy with my family business during this time. I haven't seen her for a long time. What happened to her? Did she cause trouble again?" Yi Xuanji shook his head in disappointment. "She has changed, she is no longer the Yi Meiyu of the past." "Grandpa, what the hell is going on? You will know when you see her." After saying that, he walked to his room without looking back. That stalwart back seemed to be a little stooped, making Yi Ke's eyes jump a few times, and her heart was filled with apprehension. "Meiyu, where are you?" After hesitating again and again, Yi Ke dialed Yi Meiyu's phone. "What's the matter?" Yi Meiyu replied coldly. "Did you make Grandpa angry again? Come back and apologize to Grandpa." Yi Ke said sternly. "Heh." Yi Meiyu's unscrupulous laughter came over. I apologize to him? Does he have the qualifications? Yi Ke raised her eyebrows and flew into a rage. Yi Meiyu, what are you doing? I will give you half an hour to come back, otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. Yi Ke, let me tell you, don't talk to me in this tone in the future. Just because you are older than me, you dare to yell at me, right? Let me tell you, I, Yi Meiyu, am no longer the Yi Meiyu of the past. No one in the Ye family can talk to me like this. Yi Meiyu finished speaking and hung up the phone. Yi Ke held the phone and stayed in the same place at a loss. It was inconceivable. What is wrong with Yi Meiyu? How dare she talk to me like this? He decided to get to the bottom of this, so he called her again, but her phone was turned off. No matter what you do, I will find you. Yi Ke's eyes flashed and she clenched her teeth. Tang Zheng arrived outside the Go Club in a hurry. Under the dark night, the Go Club seemed very quiet. Whoosh! He leaped and tried to climb over the wall. Bang! However, a huge force rebounded from the wall and coincidentally struck Tang Zheng's body. He was like a cannonball as he was sent flying, ruthlessly crashing into a large tree. He leaped up from the ground like a carp, his eyes overflowing with radiance as he stared fixedly at the walls of the Go Club. Suddenly, his ears twitched slightly as he heard a sound coming from the Go Club. With a creak, the door of the Go Club opened. Someone walked out and looked around vigilantly. When he saw Tang Zheng not far away, he was slightly stunned and asked, "Young Master Tang, why are you here in the middle of the night?" Obviously, the other party had already expected that the person who tried to break into the Go Club was Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked cold and asked, "Is President Ji here?" "Yes, please wait a moment. I will invite him. I will go find him myself." Tang Zheng strode into the Go Club. The man wanted to stop him, but he was not Tang Zheng's opponent. He could only follow him step by step and said, "Young Master Tang, if there is anything urgent, I will report it. President Ji is resting." Tang Zheng had just suffered a loss, and he felt that the Go Club was not simple. Before, he did not realize that the Go Club had such a strong protective force. "Where is President Ji's room? I will go find him myself," Tang Zheng said loudly. The other party had no choice but to stare. After the Great Lord used the non-phase method to trap Little White, he brought it back to the Go Club. Little White gritted its teeth and looked at him, saying, "Master will definitely come to save me." "Hee hee. You are looking forward to Tang Zheng coming to save you? Stop dreaming. He doesn't know where you are hidden." The Lord sneered. "What is this place?" Whitey rolled its eyes and looked around curiously. "You don't need to know. You are important to Tang Zheng. I don't even know where you came from. Why don't you tell me where you came from before you die?" The Lord said. The red lunar beast was useful to the Great Lord, as it could help him communicate with the power of the stars. However, although Little White was naturally mystical, it was not very useful to the Great Lord. Leaving it behind would be a huge disaster instead. Therefore, from the beginning to the end, he did not intend to leave Xiao Bai alive. Xiao Bai was smarter than the red lunar beast and could speak human language. Once the tiger returned to the mountain, it would certainly leak a lot of information to Tang Zheng. This was not a good thing for the Lord. Little White was like a brave warrior ready to die a martyr's death. He stood proudly with his head raised. He stared at the Honorable Lord with disdain and said, "Don't waste your breath. Not to mention that I don't know where I came from. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you a single word." The Lord stared at Xiao Bai. After confirming that it was not lying, he could not help but be surprised. It did not even know where it came from. Then what was its background? He shook his head slightly. It was not important. There would no longer be a Little White in the future, so there was no meaning to its origin. Ordinary weapons can't hurt you, but now is a high-tech society. The power of technology is infinite, so your defense is not omnipotent. The Lord carried Xiao Bai and walked into the depths of the basement. There was a different world under the chess club. It was brightly lit, as if it was daytime. Under the light, many instruments could be seen. There were even a few corpses of demonic beasts. They were tied to the instruments and seemed to have been tortured before they died. Their bodies were covered in blood, and they were in a sorry state. Xiao Bai's eyes widened. It stared at everything and said, You are so ruthless. You actually caught so many demonic beasts without anyone knowing. Hee. Ever since the cultivators were expelled, demonic beasts were almost impossible to see. Only after the restrictions in the 10,000 mountains were broken did demonic beasts come and go freely. That was why I had the chance to catch them and study them. Even the dragon group led by Xiaofan could catch demonic beasts. How could my Azure Dragon Hall not have the ability? The Lord could not hide the pride in his eyes as he boasted. Xiaobai coldly snorted and said, "You hid it too well. If I didn't hide it well, wouldn't I have been discovered by you guys? The only thing I am proud of in my life is that I am good at hiding. It is not easy for normal people to find out my true identity. This way I can easily play with others in the palm of my hand. It is funny that those people still don't know and think that they are in control of the situation." The Lord was immensely proud. "Don't be so long-winded. I will send you on your way now." The Lord fixed Xiaobai on an instrument. This instrument can emit the world's most powerful laser. I believe that before you die, you can taste the taste of the laser. Chapter 1084. Xiaobai was fixed on the machine as the laser accumulated energy. Xiaobai's life was on the line as it was counting down. Suddenly, a bell rang and the High Lord's expression changed. It was his subordinate informing him that someone had come to visit. He looked deeply at Xiaobai and muttered to himself, "Looks like I won't have the chance to witness your death. Have a good taste of the laser." After he finished speaking, he turned around and strode out of the basement. He then gently took off his mask. This time, he changed from the High Lord to Ji Wuxiang. His aura also underwent an earth-shattering change. So it's Tang Zhang who barged in. Why did he come here in the middle of the night? Ji Wuxiang muttered to himself. "Young Master Tang, why are you here?" Ji Wuxiang changed into a set of pajamas and greeted Tang Zhang. He pretended to be surprised as he asked. Finally seeing Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zhang stopped and asked directly, "Why did I feel the power of the stars descend in the capital?" Ji Wuxiang's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself that Tang Zhang's senses were really sharp. Ji Wuxiang did not panic in the slightest. He smiled calmly and said, "So young Master Tang is here for this matter. I activated the heavenly chess in an attempt to absorb more power of the stars into the heavenly chess. I hope that the heavenly chess can be perfected as soon as possible." "Don't you have me?" Tang Zhang asked back. "It's late at night. After all, I can't trouble young Master Tang with everything," Ji Wuxiang said with a smile. His excuse was perfect. Tang Zhang looked at him suspiciously and frowned slightly. Ji Wuxiang's expression did not change as he looked at him with a smile. "Then what's the effect of activating the heavenly chess?" Ji Wuxiang shook his head in disappointment. "I am unable to communicate with the power of the stars. Even if I can activate the celestial chess and make the power of the stars descend from the 9 heavens, I am unable to precisely channel the power of the stars into the celestial chess. Therefore, without young Master Tang's help, I would not have been able to succeed in this huge project." Ji Wuxiang's words were sincere and persuasive. Tang Zhang stared at him with burning eyes, but he didn't express whether he believed him or not. He asked, "President Ji, do you know my pet Xiaobai?" Ji Wuxiang nodded calmly. "Of course I know. I've heard that there are quite a few divine abilities as well. Xiaobai is missing. He was kidnapped." Tang Zhang's tone suddenly dropped and became cold. "What?" Ji Wuxiang raised his eyebrows in surprise. "How could this be? Who in the capital is a match for Xiaobai? President Ji's power in the capital is so great. Could it be that you have no news at all?" Ji Wuxiang let out a long sigh and said, "My power is only limited to normal matters. Regarding you cultivators, I am indeed powerless. But young Master Tang, don't worry, I will definitely do my best to track down Xiaobai's whereabouts. Do you have any specific clues?" Ji Wuxiang appeared to be very enthusiastic. "Specific clues?" Tang Zhang muttered to himself. "Number 1 died at the scene, does that count?" "Number 1? Isn't he the chief's man? Could it be that the chief sent people to kidnap Xiaobai?" Ji Wuxiang was extremely shocked. "Do you think that's possible?" Ji Wuxiang hesitated and bitterly laughed. "I can't guess the thoughts of these people in power. President Ji is too modest. If even you can't guess, then others can't." Ji Wuxiang bitterly smiled and said, "Now that I have lost my power, even my backer is in danger. If I could truly guess the thoughts of those people in power, then I wouldn't have fallen to this point." Tang Zhang stared at Ji Wuxiang from beginning to end, but after staring for a long time, he still couldn't find any clues. His reactions were steady and everything was within reason, causing Tang Zhang to be very passive. "President Ji's information is very fast. Could it be that you still don't know what the blood moon is?" Tang Zhang changed the topic and asked. Ji Wuxiang was slightly startled and his expression became strange. He stared straight at Tang Zhang and said with a smile, "Young Master Tang should be more clear about the reason for this matter, right?" "Oh, why do you say that?" Since young Master Tang is asking, then I will definitely tell you the truth. I just received news that the blood moon was caused by the scarlet lunar beast by your side and not by Tian Qi, right?" Ji Wuxiang's gaze became thought-provoking. Tang Zheng's head moved. He didn't expect the other party to admit it so frankly. If Ji Wuxiang denied it, then Tang Zheng's suspicion of him would definitely increase. Because, with Ji Wuxiang's information, it was impossible that he didn't know about this matter. If even the chief knew about it, then this definitely couldn't be hidden from Ji Wuxiang. However, he didn't expect the other party to admit it so frankly. This made Tang Zheng a bit more passive. For a moment, he couldn't understand Ji Wuxiang. "Young Master Tang, you really have too many rare and exotic beasts around you. This scarlet lunar beast can actually cause the blood moon, and it's said that once you consume its inner core, you can even absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. It's equivalent to Tang Seng's meat. You have to protect it well and don't let it get caught by bad people," Ji Wuxiang reminded, seemingly full of kindness. "You're really well informed. Don't tell me you don't have any thoughts after hearing this news?" Tang Zheng probed. Ji Wuxiang was stunned for a moment, then he laughed. "Young Master Tang, you really know how to joke. We're friends, and the scarlet lunar beast is your pet. Why would I do such a thing?" From Ji Wuxiang's reaction, Tang Zheng didn't find the information he wanted. He also couldn't directly start a fight because he didn't have any solid evidence and no solid reason to do so. However, Xiao Bai disappeared without a trace and he couldn't do anything about it. How could Tang Zheng just let it go? Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded, and the ground shook. Both of them were startled at the same time. "What's going on?" Tang Zheng asked in surprise. Ji Wuxiang's expression suddenly changed and his eyes fluctuated violently. Creak! The door was suddenly pushed open and someone rushed in and shouted, "Director Ji, something happened." Ji Wuxiang had already guessed a thing or two, so he said, "Young Master Tang, I still have something to do. You guys send young Master Tang away first." Tang Zhang had a sudden idea and said, "Director Ji, did something big happen?" "It's nothing. Just a small matter. I can handle it." Ji Wuxiang's expression flickered. Tang Zhang caught on to this and became even more determined to stay. He smiled and said, "Director Ji, just now you said that we're friends and should help each other, no matter if it's a big or small matter. If I can help, of course I won't refuse." After saying this, he directly walked out of the room and found that the outside was already in chaos. A part of the Go Club's building had collapsed and many people were rushing over. Looking at Tang Zheng's back, Ji Wuxiang's eyes flashed with a cold light, but there was nothing he could do. He could only chase after him and say, "Young Master Tang, don't worry. Let's see what's going on first." Tang Zheng pointed at the collapsed building and said, "Director Ji, could it be that there were explosives buried in this Go Club and accidentally exploded, causing this area to collapse? I occasionally like to do small experiments like this. It might be an accident, but it's not a big deal. We'll just rebuild it." Ji Wuxiang waved his hand and said without a care. But Tang Zheng had already found some clues from his expression. This was definitely not as simple as the explosion caused by a small experiment as Ji Wuxiang had said. There was definitely something else going on. The more Ji Wuxiang tried to hide it, the more interested Tang Zheng was in finding out the details. Of course, he wouldn't leave just like that. He coldly snorted in his heart and walked over with large strides. There was actually a large hole in the collapsed ruins. Smoke and dust rose from it, but one could vaguely see that there was another world under the ruins. Tang Zheng didn't say anything and jumped into the ruins. Ji Wuxiang's face became ashen. His subordinates all looked at him and asked what they should do. Ji Wuxiang fiercely stomped his feet and hurriedly chased after him and climbed into the ruins. What was under the ruins? Ji Wuxiang couldn't be more clear. Underneath the ruins was the basement where Xiao Bai was imprisoned. The explosion was definitely an accident when the laser killed Xiao Bai. As for why this accident happened, he couldn't figure it out for the time being. However, he was still worried that Tang Zhang would find some clues and deepen his suspicion, or even immediately turn against him. From Tang Zheng's reaction tonight, he was already suspecting him. If he added the last straw and the two sides completely broke off, then it would be a terrible nightmare for Ji Wuxiang. Before Heavenly Chess was completely successful, he had to rely on Tang Zheng. If they broke off, then both sides would completely fail. The Hope Laser not only killed Xiao Bai, but also destroyed its corpse, completely turning it into air. Ji Wuxiang secretly hoped. The energy of the laser was too strong. Normal creatures could be directly turned into air, so Xiao Bai shouldn't be an exception. Ji Wuxiang silently prayed and chased after him. He found that the basement had already turned into a large hole full of holes. All the equipment had been destroyed, so it was very dark. Adding on the fact that it was covered in dust, he couldn't even see his own fingers. His subordinate quickly turned on the flashlight, and finally saw a trace of light. Ji Wuxiang shouted, "Young Master Tang, where are you?" There was no reply, and Tang Zhang was nowhere to be seen. Everyone looked at each other and walked in the dark. Wherever the light shone, they didn't see anything special. An ominous premonition surfaced in Ji Wuxiang's heart. Could it be that Tang Zhang was one step ahead of him and found some clues? He gradually clenched his fist, and there was a trace of killing intent in his eyes. If that was the case, then he definitely couldn't let Tang Zheng live today. He definitely couldn't let the tiger go back to the mountain. As for perfecting Heavenly Chess, he had to think of another way. The Red Moon Beast was a good breakthrough. If they really broke off, then he had to capture the Red Moon Beast no matter what. Once he consumed the Red Moon Beast's inner core, he would naturally be able to communicate with the astral energy and perfect Heavenly Chess. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.